Recording in progress.
Good evening. I call this meeting of the Greenbelt City Council to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Good evening, Ms. McKinney.
Here.
Ms. Pompey.
Here.
Ms. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Niesel.
Here.
Mr. Roberts. Ms. Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Jordan.
I'm here. Please join us in a moment of silent reflection as we remember several individuals, residents, and others who have passed away since the last council meeting. Elaine Weissel Eubanks, Thomas Joseph Payne, Barbara Ann Payne, Mark Wayne Price, Keith Allen Bear, and Muriel Mickey Weidenfeld. Please join us in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Councilmember Pompey, will you lead us in the pledge?
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. So we hold council meetings twice a month, except for August, on Mondays, to set policy to take formal actions. Our meetings are open to the public except for executive sessions as authorized by state law so that residents and others can observe council deliberations. We do strive to provide a reasonable opportunity for the public to voice opinions on matters being considered, so we'll pause periodically for public comment. During these times, if you wish to address council, if you raise your hand in the room after being recognized, you can go to the podium. And you need to state your name and where you live, more or less. We need that for the minutes. If you are watching on Zoom, through the Zoom feed, you can submit a question or comment through the Q&A tab, a written comment, or you can raise your virtual hand. And once again, after being recognized, you'll need to state your name and where you live in the area. And if you're watching on cable TV or YouTube or Facebook, so many choices, you can send an email to us at questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So during the meeting, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, but we start off our council meetings with petitions and requests. It's an opportunity for any resident or other folks as well to make a statement or to ask a question of the administration. We do not respond to questions. We leave time for our staff to actually prepare responses, but the floor is actually open. Are there any petitions or requests? Yes, please.
Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. Thank you for doing all the purchasing of improvements to the city that are on the consent agenda. But because it is on the consent agenda, I just want to address one issue that that I'm very concerned about, and that is the street lighting. And I'm speaking specifically of Center City, because when I drive around there, I notice at night, the lighting is not very good. The lamps are very dim, and especially on corners, on intersections, like on Ridge Road. If I were to make a right turn onto one of the other streets, if there's someone waiting to cross the street and they're standing on the corner and I'm making a right turn and the intersections are not well lit at all, and it's very easy to miss, it would be very easy to miss someone who is trying to cross the street. And I'm wondering, in all of the improvements that we're making, the ARPA money, if any consideration, I know this is all for the walk and bike path plan, but I'm wondering if any consideration was given to the corners and the intersections where someone may be waiting to cross the street, but in a dark area. And so that's what I would like to bring to your attention.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I might add that petitions and requests, they're logged by the city clerk. We maintain a log, and it's our aspiration to respond within 30 days. Yes. Are there any other petitions or requests? Yes, please, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fred Gasper from Greenbelt, Maryland, over in East Greenbelt. And I've been told by Jamie Farr, your planning and development, that the changes that have been proposed for Hanover Parkway, the pedestrian features are going to be taken care of, but no bicycling features are being done. I'd like to mention that it was almost 5 years ago that I did a presentation to you, and 2 years before that I did one. And what was the first frame of my presentation was, this road is being neglected. Changes are not being done. The very end of the presentation, I gave a frame. It says, wouldn't it make sense if we phased in these things so that the little things that we could do now are taken care of for the future and appropriately planned so that the little things can be done, and then the big things, when it comes to more expenses, can be planned ahead for. Comes down just like Mandan Road just recently being repaved. Hanover Parkway has places where it hasn't even been fixed. Coming up from the Eleanor Roosevelt High School to 193, where they took care of the repaving 193, but they didn't do it to the same position that they did it last time, State Highway Administration. They cut off the amount of it that they did, and they left potholes sitting there where we have to drive over all the time. And it's been almost 3 months since that happened, and Greenbelt's done nothing about it. So I cannot understand why the Department of Public Works and Transportation for the city of Greenbelt has a tendency to neglect Hanover Parkway. I see places in remote spots, and I did this in my presentation, and I did the count of the number of them on the West Greenbelt and Mid Greenbelt side as compared to East Greenbelt, where there are none of them. And that is concrete supports for the bus stops. We have bus stops on Hanover Parkway, and that's what's happening to them. They've already been replaced with regular asphalt. While in even more remote places in Old Greenbelt that don't get as many buses, they've been replaced with concrete pads. So I do not understand the inequities that have happened when Hanover Parkway is the most used, the busiest, and actually, in some ways, the most important road under control of the city of Greenbelt. So I am here to say that I would also like to see more done, but also about the bicycle directions on the pavement. Jamie tells me they can't be done because we have plans for a trail, and it's going to happen, and I think that is a fantastic thing. I know everybody works hard on these things, but I see things just not happening over there, that opportunities have been there for them to happen. And I would just like to speak up about them. And I see that, I think next week there's a planned meeting for this type of thing, and I plan to attend. But I wanted to alert the City of Greenbelt City Council that nothing's changed over there. And that presentation I did was 4 years ago. And that's what I said. And it just seems neglectful that nothing has been done at all. The crosswalks haven't been taken care of. Now, if there's plans to repave the road, I can understand not painting the crosswalks. But there's no plans to repave that roadway, but there should be, because that roadway is our most important roadway, most heavily traveled. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions I'm willing to ask if you have something you want to ask me about it. Anybody on the council?
Taken note of your comments.
I'm sorry?
We've taken note of your comments.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Jay Davis?
Somebody may want their phone.
Mr. Gasper?
It makes a good price, I'll just take it. Okay. Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. Dorothy Piles, if anyone is here even remembers Dorothy Piles, would roll over in her grave if she heard the term East Greenbelt and West Greenbelt. She fought very hard that we would use Greenbelt East, and Greenbelt West, so that Greenbelt was the first in the thought. West was simply a geographical designation. We fought WMATA to put that on the buses. Please, city staff, citizens, please use Greenbelt East and Greenbelt West. That's what we voted on a long time ago in the council. Sorry. I'm calling or talking about a county bill 098-2024, abandoned shopping carts. I did alert the council and staff about this. It was presented by Councilmember Ingrid Watson and sponsored by Councilmember Juanita Fisher. It is going to be voted on this Thursday morning in the Transportation, Infrastructure, Energy, and Environment Committee. If it passes, it will then go to the council next week. If it passes, it will be effective 45 days later after it becomes law. So this does concern all retail stores, grocery stores, or any store that has shopping carts. As we know, abandoned shopping carts are all over the place, and it is a problem. It's a litter problem, it's a safety problem, and sometimes the kids like to throw them into creeks or like play with them and so on, so it is a safety problem. So what to do with them is what county council is trying to determine. I know that what they're trying to do is that you must label your cart appropriately and make sure that if it's called in, that you go and retrieve it. That's the retail store, and equip with control devices or some alternative by May 2025. This can be occurred or enforced anywhere, public or private land, but not the store property. So if the carts are wandering around the store property parking lot, that's okay. They can go and retrieve them, which they do. The fines are pretty hefty. So the question is, does the city want to support this? I understand there is a concern. If there is a concern, it needs to be put before the committee votes. This thing is going forward. And if we don't say our concerns for the co-op and other small retail stores, because right now, everything in that proposed bill will affect the co-op, including the hefty fines and the electronic devices or alternative measure. One of the summaries that I read said large retail stores, but everywhere else, it just did not even have a disqualifier. So I would suggest, if you're going to make a comment about this bill, whether you support it or not, and it really should be supported, you should send in your concerns, especially so that there would be some recognition for small retail stores not having to have the electronic devices, and maybe there would have to be some kind of lower fine if it's a small retail store. Just a suggestion. The committee meets on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Other petitions, requests? Please, sir.
Bill Orene, city resident. Here again to say that I've still not received answers to the various questions, all of the various questions posed by me over the course of the last couple of years. And I'm still anxiously awaiting answers to those questions. The ones I have received, I remain unsatisfied with, but both for those and the one that I've asked that I've received no response to, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any other petitions or requests? Hearing none, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And that would be the consent agenda. Got a couple of modifications I'd like to put forward. Mr. Roberts?
I'd like to have number 25, Hillside Road site distance issue and parking removal removed from the consent agenda, please.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to move two items to the consent agenda, item number 14 and item number 16. And I would like to move item number 31 to the next council meeting on the 28th. So are there any other suggestions for the consent agenda?
I'm sorry, which one was it? 31, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
It might be helpful. Can you just say the name of which ones you're moving to the consent agenda and moving off?
Certainly do that. Item number 14 is the approval of waiver of property tax lien against Charleston North Apartments. Item number 16 is the approval of special event and one-time suspension of fire code requirements for the Pumpkin Walk. And item number 31, which I'd like to actually move to the next council meeting. So we've got a really packed agenda, and I just would like to, this would be authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with VMP Construction Company for the installation of raised crosswalks. So I'd like to be able to discuss that at the next meeting. So, yes, Mr. Summerall.
For item 25, should council consider removing that from the consent agenda, I kindly request that we schedule it for the next regular meeting so that the team is prepared to discuss the matter more broadly as we're looking to ensure that our sidewalks and parking guidelines are in compliance with state requirements.
Seems reasonable. Mr. Roberts?
You want to remove that until the next meeting?
I think for the sake
Well,
of time and allow.
Let me ask you this. I understand there's going to be some more public, some kind of discussion or some kind of study done in that area. Is that going to be done by the next council meeting?
We have done some speed studies, traffic analysis already that covers that area, and there's more work.
The problem I'm having with this is that the residents in the area have not been notified at all about this. So there's been no opportunity for them to question it. And the people that live in that immediate vicinity, they rely on that street parking to be close to their homes and park because they don't have a court that they live in. So the main thing I want out of this is public discussion. So if that can happen, if that's going to happen before the next meeting, that's fine. If not, I'd like it to be put off until there is public discussion of the issue.
I think maybe Mr. Roberts is referring to the meeting on the 29th. There's going to be a meeting discussing traffic calming city center. Maybe that's the meeting you're thinking of. Is that what?
I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't know. When you mentioned a public meeting, there's going to be supposed to be a public meeting
Well, here's what we can
that
do.
includes sections of Hillside that maybe that's.
I think that's part of it, yeah.
So here's what we can do. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we move item number 14 and 16 to the consent agenda. And also just to remove item 25 and item 31 from the consent agenda. From the regular, just remove them completely for this meeting.
Okay, and we'll schedule them for the meeting on the 28th.
Give people more time.
Second.
You seconded? Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion does carry. And as far as the agenda, are there any modifications to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to move item 17, which is discussion of the budget request from the Reparations Committee up to item 14.
Okay. I'll second that. Is there any discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda as modified, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Simoneau.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure that council is aware that we added 2 agenda items that are administrative items. One is the membership and the dues that are due to the Anacostia Trails Heritage Area. We updated that today, so I want to make sure council received the updated agenda, which was printed out. So there's no confusion about the
Excellent.
item number 34, which is the membership for the Anacostia Trails Heritage Area, and number 35, which is a opera grant, the Birth Grant Award.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I believe the agenda passed. So let's go ahead. I said all in favor, all opposed, nobody opposed it. So I think we got an agenda. What do you think?
I think we do.
Okay.
Let's move on quick.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, so that's going to bring us to the presentation section of the agenda. And we've got a few items. I just want to mention that today is, in fact, Indigenous Peoples Day. It's celebrated annually on the second Monday in October, coinciding with Columbus Day. This holiday honors the histories, cultures, and contributions of Indigenous people in the United States, serving as a counter-celebration to Columbus Day, which commemorates Christopher Columbus' arrival in America. And it's also Italian-American Heritage Month throughout the country. But it's also Cooperative Month here in the city of Greenbelt. The National Cooperative Business Association has designated October as Cooperative Month. Members from more than 40,000 cooperatives nationwide will celebrate the advantages of cooperative membership and recognize the benefits and values cooperatives bring to their members and communities. Representatives from Greenbelt's 7 cooperatives have been invited to attend tonight's meeting and to receive a proclamation announcing the city's support, recognition of cooperative businesses and organizations throughout this month and throughout the year. So the representatives from the cooperatives, if you'd like to come forward, I'm going to stand and present you with this proclamation. Welcome. Okay, this is a proclamation. Whereas cooperatives are created through the initiative and self-reliance of Americans who come together to meet common economic, social, and cultural needs through a democratically controlled enterprise that is owned and governed by its members and exists solely to serve the members' interest. And whereas the theme of National Co-op Month 2024, The Future is Cooperative, is acknowledging the unique and essential role cooperatives play in providing clean, affordable energy, increasing environmental, economic opportunities, and improving the quality of life for people in rural America and throughout the country. And whereas there are more than 40,000 cooperative businesses in the United States operating in every industry, including agriculture, childcare, energy, financial services, publishing, food, retail, distribution, housing, healthcare, insurance, telecommunications, and many others. And whereas United States cooperatives serve more than 350 million members, generating more than 2 million jobs and making a substantial contribution to the economy with annual sales of $652 billion, that's about $2,000 per person in the United States. And whereas since Greenbelt's founding in 1937, the spirit of cooperation has dramatically sustained and enriched our community. And whereas the city of Greenbelt itself is a member of cooperatives, including purchasing cooperatives to help reduce the city's cost. And whereas Greenbelt's cooperatives are greatly appreciated by all of our residents as being essential to the fabric of our daily lives. And these cooperatives include the Greenbelt Consumer Cooperative, Inc., Greenbelt Homes Incorporated, Greenbelt Makerspace Cooperative, the Greenbelt News Review, the New Deal Cafe, and the Greenbelt Nursery School. Now, therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim October 2024 to be Cooperative Month, during which we will join with all of our cooperatives, especially those in Greenbelt here, and celebrate their achievements, reaffirm their commitment to the values of cooperative enterprise, and look to the bright future that these co-ops will help to create. So congratulations. Let's take the political council. Why don't you stand up? And John, will you hold this proclamation up? Maybe you and Mary Lou can kind of hold it together. So congratulations. Okay. And actually, I've got a number of these proclamations. How we got the GHI. Thank you. You. Nursery school? Anybody else? Got one?
Gets one, right?
News review.
News review. Is that it?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, Greenbelt has been all about cooperatives. So I don't know if any of you would like to step to the podium to say a little bit about the activities that you are engaged in this year and throughout the year. Would anyone like to say anything? Special observances coming up for Co-op Month, or business as usual, Greenbelt business, all about cooperatives. So, this is a festive time. John, please.
Okay, John Campanile, 15S Laurel Hill, and president of the New Deal Cafe Board as of last June. And happy to be here. Thank you for the proclamation. And I'm happy to represent the New Deal Cafe tonight and speak a little bit about it. It's a nice little music venue, food and music, right here in the heart of Greenbelt. The only music venue, I believe, such as with the stage and performances at least 6 nights per week. And we have, let's see, lately, we've got this real cool merch coming on. We've got tumblers and mugs and keychains and this hoodie I'm wearing. You can't tell it's a hoodie, but it is a hoodie. And they're all available at the cafe. And we offer memberships to the folks of Greenbelt. And for that, they receive a 10% off of food and beverages on our membership appreciation night, which happens to be tonight, the second Mondays of the month, and 10% off of the merchandise. So nice little benefit there. There's no clock on me.
Well, John, you've got some changes coming up at the New Deal, and I
Well,
think
we
the New
do.
Deal is going to
We-
be
we
closed
have
for a
a
few
new
days.
vendor, new food and beverage vendor starting on November the 1st. His name is Kenny Hilliard, and we're looking forward to the changes that Kenny plans, and I think the city will be happy with it too. We will be tabling this weekend at the Greenbelt Farmers Market, and we'll have more information about certain things going on with the change. So stop on by and stop on by. Thank you.
It's fantastic. Anybody else like to speak about activities?
The city paper, thank you. The city paper's Reader's Choice. Best place to, let's see if I can remember them all. Best place to have dinner and music. Among the best, I should say. And I wish I remember the rest of the others. But we also, say again? Music. Local music. One of the best places for local music. And we also received a Grammy, this Washington Area Music Association, Grammy, or Whammy, I should say, for being one of the better clubs in the DC area.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I covered it. Thank you.
So the Consumer Co-op, Greenbelt Homes Incorporated, the Makerspace, the News Review, New Deal Cafe, Greenbelt Nursery School. All right.
Hello, I'm Kristen Inge here on behalf of the Greenbelt Nursery School, and we're honored to receive this proclamation by the City of Greenbelt. The school continues to provide a nursery school environment for children, play-based learning for families within Greenbelt and the surrounding areas. We are having an upcoming restaurant night at none other than Generous Joe's on October 28th. So if you're looking to not cook dinner that night, feel free to come out. Kids will be dressed in their costumes, and it will be a lot of fun and a way to mingle, with the nursery school teachers and some families in the area. So thanks again, and we hope to see you there.
Hey, thank you so much. Next up, the Greenbelt News Review.
Yeah, Mary Lou Williamson, 58 Lakeside. I think what is worked so well for us this year in handing out ARPA monies helped us recoup some of the losses that we sustained during the shutdown. It was significant. What the board had decided to do was make sure that we maintained the 12-page paper every week, whether we paid for it or not, that it would be a boost to the community to be able to read about activities, what was happening in Greenbelt. And we felt that was very important. So we appreciate the money that we got for the first, for that issue. And we're deep into now trying to improve our website. So we have been investigating that. We think we found somebody who speaks the same language and we can work with. So waiting to see how that works out. But we're very much appreciative of being considered for those two requests that we made. Thanks.
No, thank you for your service, Mary Williams. We are so fortunate to have our own community newspaper coming out every week since 1937, never missing a single edition. At least that's what I've been told. It's just amazing. So thank you for your service.
It wasn't long for 4 months. We were able to read through all the way statistics and get about 90% of what we had lost. So we're no computers. It saved everything.
Wow. It was amazing.
Is it on Rodney's
Rodney's
motorcycle?
I don't think so. GHI.
Good evening. Joseph Perry, Jr., Director of Finance at Greenbelt Homes. We're excited to be able to receive this proclamation from the City of Greenbelt on this evening. Just to offer you an opportunity for those who have little children that may look for chances to get some goodies at the end of the month. We will have some at the administrative office during work hours. So we'd love to have the children come by and with their little costumes and be able to greet them. It'll brighten up our day. All right? Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to mention on Thursday, the 17th, the Prince George's County Federal Credit Union is doing ribbon cutting. And of course, federal credit unions are cooperatives.
Yes.
Yes, they are. So looking forward to that rebranding, renaming, but right in the heart of Greenbelt Roosevelt Center. So once again, to all the cooperatives, thank you so much. You are really very much what makes Greenbelt a very special place to live, work, and play. Thank you. And next up, I have another proclamation because it is Maryland Economic Development Week. So October 21st to the 25th, 2024, Maryland Economic Development Week. Economic Development Week emphasizes to the general public the importance of economic development for the state of Maryland. This week is designed to increase the understanding of economic development's contribution to the state's business climate, job retention and growth, tax base, and overall quality of life. Now, John Mason, who is our new Director of Economic Development Manager, is here with us, and we've got several businesses here also who are going to also receive the proclamation. Could you come forward, please? Hey, welcome. Here's the proclamation. Whereas Greenbelt is home to a vibrant and diverse business community that provides jobs, amenities, and supports our quality of life, and whereas the City of Greenbelt's Economic Development Department has promoted and supported economic development by serving as a liaison to entrepreneurs and businesses, offering technical assistance for substantial business growth, and providing necessary linkages to the county, state, and federal resources in partnering with organizations. And whereas Greenbelt is a member of the Maryland Economic Development Association, MEDA, a nonprofit organization established in 1961, whose mission is to enhance the knowledge and skills of its members, encourage partnerships and networking among people committed to bringing jobs and capital to Maryland, promotes economic development as an investment in Maryland. And whereas the economic growth and stability of the state affects all regions and jurisdictions in Maryland, and the City of Greenbelt's economic development efforts are important components of the state's economic success and will continue to work to support the improvement and recovery efforts of local businesses. Now, therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, hereby proclaim the week of October 21st through 25th, 2024 as Maryland Economic Development Week to highlight the investments in partnerships that strengthen our competitiveness in Greenbelt and ask all to join us to recognize and reaffirm the importance of business development locally and statewide. So, John and Jessica, I've got here's one more. So would you like to go over to the podium and say a couple of words? I know CCI has big, in the, hardware store, there's just lots of big activities. Why don't you?
Picture first.
Okay. So if you'd like to say a couple of words about some of the events that are coming up.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Before our guests speak, I wanted to say that for those who don't know me, I am John Mason, the recently hired Economic Development Manager for the City of Greenbelt. And Maryland Economic Development Week, as the Mayor stated, emphasizes the contributions that are being made to state economic development in counties and cities and towns throughout the state during the week of October 21st through 24th. This week is designed to increase understanding of economic development, contribution to the state, job retention, improving our business climate, increasing our tax base, overall quality of life. And it is during this time annually that we're able to have economic development take center stage throughout Maryland during this week, where proclamations are made and businesses have significant projects, of which you will hear of an amazing one on tonight, have made significant contributions to Maryland to make it a great place to live, work, and play and do business. As I mentioned, you will briefly hear about two projects this week, actually starting this week, up until the end of Economic Development Week. We have 3 ribbon cuttings that are slated, both of which will be high profile, one of which, Brooke Learman is slated to, our state comptroller, is slated to attend and be a participant in that, because this is also Women in Business Month in this, I believe, the state of Maryland, or I think across the country. So we're celebrating that as well. This is a great month for business in October. So I would like for our guests to just give us a brief synopsis of their project. You're going to be excited about this. If you can join our ribbon cutting, we'll send out the dates. We'd love to have you come. So first, Jessica Wilson, representing CCI Health Services. She'll talk a little bit about her project. And then Alejandro Ramirez, her retail store as well.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here on behalf of CCI Health Services to receive this proclamation. For those of you that don't know, CCI is a federally qualified health center that broke ground on a 50,000 square foot health center right here in Greenbelt just this past January. And we are so thrilled to be able to cut the ribbon for that space this week, which will offer the opportunity for us to drastically improve the services that we are providing to Greenbelt and beyond for everybody that is slated to come and work here with the relocation of FBI and all the other great things that are coming to the city of Greenbelt. In our new health center space, we're going to be offering comprehensive medical, dental, behavioral health services, as well as a community-based pharmacy. We're also going to be opening the state's first community-based family medicine residency program, which we're really, really excited about, as well as partnering with Employ Prince George's to bring a capital area healthcare training center into this space as well. So we'll really be working to create a ton of new job opportunities with a 63 exam room, 16 dental operatories. So we know we're going to be hiring a lot of hopefully people from the community, from the surrounding communities, as well as provide services to well over 10,000 community members annually. So we're very excited. Thank you all.
Thank you. That is very, very exciting news.
That's great.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm Alejandra Ramirez. I don't know if some of you guys don't know. I am the owner of Beltway Plaza Hardware. I've been the owner for 7 years now. Since August, I took over Barry Blackman. He's been a part of this community for almost 50 years now. So I've been a part of the hardware store for 20 years. So my kids literally grew up in that store. Literally, I think a lot of y'all seen me pregnant with them, and you guys ask about them all the time. So I definitely feel like I've been a part of this community for all this time and all these years that I've been here. So I'm grateful for this award, as well as the award for National Small Business Women Owned Month on the 23rd, with Brooke Linderman coming in and recognizing me as a small woman business owned, and I appreciate that a lot. It says a lot for my family. My mother was a single mother of 8, and she was an immigrant coming here, and she fought really hard to do everything she could for 8 of us, and I hope I'm doing everything I can to make her proud in all of this. So definitely big representation for the Salvadoreño side here. So I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be a part of this community that gave me the opportunity to grow. So I appreciate it all. Thank you.
Yeah. We appreciate you. You know, independent hardware stores are becoming harder and harder to find. And I know when there's a difficult part or something that I need, you know, I often go to Beltway Plaza, to the new location right next to the giant grocery store, because I know that I can ask a question, it'll be answered, and I'll probably be able to find exactly what I'm looking for.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to the ribbon cutting. And to CCI, this is a really, really large facility and expansion. You've got 2 other sites in Greenbelt right now, as well as sites in Montgomery County and the surrounding area. So we are really, really grateful and thrilled that the expansion is taking place here in Greenbelt. So, Mr. Mason, it's great having you on board. It's great to be able to highlight what our local businesses are doing, and it seems like there's some good things going on in Greenbelt.
Oh, most definitely. We're excited about our possibilities, and you know, every day is an adventure. And so I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of all this wonderful growth. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and finally, I have a proclamation for National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I'm actually going to work with Ms. Andrews to post this on social media. This Domestic Violence Awareness Month evolved from the Day of Unity held in October of 1981, and conceived by the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So the Day of Unity became a week in October, and now for the past several years, 5 or 10 years at least, it's been a time when we display the purple light in front of the municipal building and throughout Greenbelt. So domestic violence is something that it's a movement to end domestic violence. It's never the fault of victims or survivors. We must do our part as leaders and as a community to support them. So let us help survivors truly heal forward and come together as a community to end this abusive behavior. So if you have a purple light, use it. And we actually had some purple lights that we were giving. I don't know if we have them now, but
I'm not sure, but in previous years, I think the police department had given them out, and yeah, but I'm not sure. So don't everybody run to the police department. But in previous years, they had some and they passed them out. So I don't know, Mrs. Salmaron, do we have some? Okay, thank you.
if you were around in the 60s or 70s and you have that black light, you know, you can pull it out. Yeah.
Well, and if I may, on a serious note about domestic violence, I would really, really like everyone to know the fact that the stat that it takes on average 7 attempts for a person in a domestic violence situation to leave. So if you are in that type of situation, or if you know of someone in that type of situation, patience. Everyone leaves at the right time for them.
So right, so right. Thank you so much. So at this time, let's move to item number 8. We have a statement of record for a closed session or two. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah. In accordance with the General Provisions Article, Section 3-06C2 of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland, I move that minutes of tonight's meeting reflect that council met in closed session on Monday, October 7th, 2024 at 9:11 p.m. in council chambers. Council held this closed meeting in accordance with Section 3-3051 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland. 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the city manager's evaluation process. Vote to close the session. Ms. Niesel, yes. Ms. McKinney, yes. Ms. Pompey, yes. Ms. Pope, yes. Mr. Roberts, no. Ms. Weaver, yes. Mayor Jordan, yes. The following staff members were in attendance: Jospe Samaron, City Manager; Dwayne Martinez, Director of Human Resources; and Adewunmi Lewis, a consultant from MGT. Council took no action during this session.
Well, thank you. Is there a second? That's a motion. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And let's move on to 8B.
In accordance with the General Provisions Article, Section 3-06C2 of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland, I move that the minutes of tonight's meeting reflect that council met in closed session on Wednesday, October 9th, 2024 at 7:44 p.m. in council chambers. Council held this closed meeting in accordance with Section 3-3059 and 10 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of the Public General Laws of Maryland. 1, to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations, and 2, to discuss public security if the public body determines that public discussion would constitute a risk to the public or to public safety, including 1, the deployment of fire and police services and staff, and 2, the development and implementation of emergency plans. The purpose of this meeting was 1, to discuss the City and Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 32 agreement regarding collective bargaining agreement, CBA, and 2, to discuss the deployment and status of the Fire Department, Emergency Medical Services, EMS, and Police Services. Vote to close session. Ms. Niesel, yes. Ms. McKinney, yes. Ms. Pompey, yes. Ms. Pope, yes. Mr. Roberts, no. Ms. Weaver, yes. Mayor Jordan, yes. The following staff members were in attendance: Jospe Samaron, City Manager; Richard Bowers, Police Chief, until 8:44 p.m. Other attendees were Stephen Silvestri and Blaine Taylor from Jackson Lewis Law Firm until 8:44 p.m. And Sue Ellen Ferguson, attorney, from 8:46 p.m. Council took no action during this session.
Second.
Ms. Pope is seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
That requires a roll call vote for,
Does that require a roll call vote?
minutes, I believe.
Sure about that?
Anyway, just
Oh, okay. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll? Actually, can you call? Go ahead.
Ms. McKinney?
Yes.
Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Ms. Niesel? Mr. Roberts? Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes. And if
So
we
then we
can
need to go
and call
back.
the roll
So,
for,
yeah, so I
think we need
move again what I already read about the October 7th meeting.
Ms. Pope is seconded. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Kenny? Yes. Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Ms. Pope?
Yes.
Ms. Niesel?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts? Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes. Okay. Hey, that's going to bring us to administrative reports. City Manager Samaron, how are you this evening?
Great, thank you.
Recording stop. Recording in progress.
Uh-oh.
All right, so we've had a busy week. Thank you, council, for coming out to 3 great events that we had. We had the tour of the Armory. Appreciate having all of you there. We look forward to tonight's presentation about the Armory feasibility study. There's a lot of great opportunity there, and we've got a great partner to work with us on that endeavor. We've had the GED graduation event. We had 3 graduates, 6 were present, and we celebrated their accomplishments. So everyone was very grateful to have your presence. And we had the Fall Fest, which was just amazing weather, great turnout. The team really went above and beyond to secure the games, and and the activities. We had the bucket trucks raising folks. There was such a long line at the end of the event that they stayed until past 6 to make sure that everyone that was in line got a chance to ride the bucket truck. So hopefully we inspire folks to do public works duties at that event.
Give them off.
Or they get a test for heights. So thank you for attending that. We had a kickoff to the collective bargaining negotiations and meetings with the police union. That's going well. We were intentional about moving those activities further up the timeline than they have been in the past, so that whatever gets negotiated, it's ahead of any proposed budget, ahead of our budget timeline. So we were very sensitive to making sure that we got that work. We're aiming to get that work ahead of our budget season. We kicked off the tax deferential meetings. I'll be attending a clinic next week on the matter. Mayor Jordan, thank you for your role in that committee with the county. We've upgraded Wi-Fi coverage in the building. So if you're using the city Wi-Fi in the building, or if you had some dead zones in the building, we've now improved access throughout the building. So that's working well. We had the flu shots take place, the flu clinic. We had 149 individuals attend that. So great turnout. Hope some of you got your flu shot. If you haven't, we'll direct you to places you can get the flu shot. There's a lot of work with ARPA projects. As you can see from all the numerous projects that you approved tonight, all the projects that you approved tonight through the consent agenda, this would be the third step in the process. We had a council approve the bike pedestrian projects as a whole. That was the direct outcome of work sessions and discussions about where to make improvements throughout the city. We conducted a tour of those facilities with the proposed improvements. So that includes the raised crosswalks, the parking challenges. During the tour that we conducted for council, we itemized a lot of the trouble areas along the sight lines and where parking is challenging, what sidewalks are challenges. So thank you for your support on that. Your approval tonight will help some of those projects move along. There are others that are dependent on the raised crosswalk project that's going to be pushed off to the 28th. So we'll put some of those projects on hold. But a lot of work on ARPA projects, moving those along to meet our deadlines. Quickly on the concrete work, if you took a walk through Roosevelt Center, you've seen some work that we've done on the sidewalks. We're improving the curbs, the sidewalks. Just today, we removed the rails at the co-op, and that was important because they were not supported, they were not stable. There's also a hole on the walkway that's 2 feet deep, and there's erosion underneath that sidewalk that we could not determine. We have a small scope to be able to scope out lines, and we went as far as the scope would go, which is a couple feet in both directions. So this Wednesday, the Public Works team and contractors will be cutting the section of concrete in front of the co-op store. So there's going to be some disruption to that entrance off the plaza. But we need to do that to further examine the erosion that's happened underneath the property. So that work is being planned for this week. The resurfacing work will start next week. We're finalizing the timeline with the team over the next 2 days, and we'll announce that as we have been announcing through social media on that plan work in Roosevelt Center. There's a lengthy report in your packet. I'm welcome any questions you may have.
Well, yeah, thank you for that report. There's so many things going on with the American Rescue Plan funding that has to be all committed, by December the 31st. And our internal deadline is the 30th, so we're kind of down to crunch time. So it's good that we've got some reallocations on the agenda for tonight. I was wondering, there's a lot of work on playgrounds. The new playground area over at Spring Hill Lake is looking very good, a basketball court. And of course, over at Buddy Attic Lake, there's a new playground taking place, an accessible playground taking place over there. So how are those projects coming along? And
we plan to unveil the Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center playground at the end of the month. The playground at Buddy Attic, the team is working on final touches. It could be complete as early as the end of this week, but likely next week. we have kids that are eager to get into both playgrounds. So they're moving through the fences, and so well, the team is sensitive to kids getting into closed off areas because it's not entirely complete, and we're concerned about safety hazards. So we're monitoring that, and we're looking to move those two projects so that
It's playground weather.
it's
so.
yes, but the fences are not part of the playground yet. So.
Okay, council, questions? Yes, please.
Well, I think because it was mentioned earlier, the questions about that traffic study. So Wednesday, the advisory planning board is meeting about that traffic calming study. If residents want to attend that information is on the city website. And I think that I looked up the email from Ms. Ruby. The community meeting that was mentioned is October 29th, 7 to 9 p.m. in the Greenbelt Community Center, room 201. So those are upcoming. And then I believe the presentation, I was trying to find the date I believe the presentation to council about that is coming up so it's November 20th about the traffic calming studies. So if there are folks who are interested in those things, just wanted to point out those dates. And then it was also a resident just let me know that October is also National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So we didn't do a proclamation for that one, but that's also something important to recognize, and how we as, the city as employers, but also all of us in our own jobs can help make sure that people are aware of how to help people who might need accommodations to do their job appropriately, and the contribution that those people can make when given sometimes very minor accommodations.
Okay, if there are no further questions, let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which would be moving to the legislation section. This would be item number 11, a resolution to establish Charter Review Task Force. This is based on a memo from Tim George on September the 23rd. It's a resolution for the creation of a Charter Review Task Force to review the city charter and city code as directed by council, and to recommend changes for city council consideration. All city council approved changes would then proceed through the state mandated charter change process. So I actually introduced this resolution at the meeting on September 23rd, and I'd like to reintroduce it for second reading and adoption for tonight's meeting. Let me see if I can pull it up. That's not it. Anybody have that handy?
What are you looking for to?
The resolution.
It's.
Oh, okay. This is a resolution for the establishment of a charter review task force, whereas the Greenbelt City Council has the responsibility to ensure that the city charter is reflective of enacted charter amendments, is compatible with the current county, state, and federal law, and is supportive of the needs of city residents and officials. And whereas the ultimate objective of the city charter is to balance control with organizational and process flexibility and discretion, and whereas it is beneficial for the city charter to be reviewed periodically to ensure consistency and clarity, and whereas a comprehensive review of the city charter is a weighty activity that requires serious consideration and participation from impacted parties, and whereas the city charter has not undergone a comprehensive review in recent years, and whereas the city council recognizes the value of diverse perspectives and expertise from individuals who represent our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Greenbelt, Maryland, that the following procedures will govern the charter review process. Number one, a Greenbelt City Charter Review Task Force will be established for the purpose of reviewing the city charter and council identified city code to chapters. Two, the task force will be established by this resolution and stay in effect until the review is complete and the charter change is approved by the City Council, at which time the task force will be dissolved. And three, the completion of the charter review must occur within 9 months of the formation of the task force. And number four, the task force shall have 15 members as followed: Greenbelt residents, 2 from each area of the city; Greenbelt businesses, 4; city staff, administrative, planning, DEI, 3; City Council, 2; And number 5, the task force chair shall be elected from and by the members of the task force and must be either a resident or a business person. Number 6, city staff and the city solicitor will conduct functional and administrative and legal reviews, respectively, concurrent with the task force work. Findings from the work will inform the task force review process. Number 7, the task force will review the advisory board input in preparing a preliminary findings report to be reviewed by the city solicitor for legal sufficiency. Number 10, the resulting preliminary findings report will be shared with council and residents at a city council work session. Number 11, the task force shall hold at least 2 open meetings to gather city stakeholder input feedback and 1 city council work session to present preliminary recommendations. Number 12, final chapter changes recommendations will be presented at a regular city council meeting for discussion and approval. And number 13, approved charter change recommendations will follow the state mandated charter change process. So there you have it. Is there a second? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please? Or actually, is there a discussion?
Yes, yeah, hold on.
I was ready.
You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, back agenda.
Councilmember Pompey.
Yeah, how will we be determining which residents to appoint to the committee, which council members, and that kind of stuff?
Well, I imagine we'll have a discussion once this is once the form is approved. We can work out a system through council consensus and also gathering feedback from the community on how to go about gathering, appointing individuals to this task force. City Manager Summerone and Mr. George, I know you've worked on this quite a bit and thought it through thoroughly.
Thank you, Mayor. The current process for appointments to advisory boards, committees are done by council through the interview process. So someone applies, they get interviewed, and then council makes the appointment. So I propose we use existing process for this.
So we would put out a call then?
Correct.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess,
Sorry, for the council, that would be the 2 council members. That's up to council.
yeah, we just have to negotiate and see who wants to do it. I guess one thing I was thinking about looking at this, and given that we did the proclamation for the co-ops, I wonder if specifically we have 4 representatives from businesses, which actually seems like kind of a high proportion compared to residents, but I wonder if we should make sure at least 1, if not 2 of those slots are maybe one, at least one that is specifically a co-op representative as part of the Charter Review Board. That would be an amendment that I would propose to make that change. I think I am open to negotiation 1 or 2, but I think at least 1.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't think that we need to codify that necessarily, but we can actually be thinking that as we interview and do the selection process.
Why not codify it? I think we should codify it. I would like to propose an amendment that we change the 4 business representatives to be 3 business representatives and 1 co-op representative.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. Now, what if we don't have a nominee from one of the cooperatives?
Then we have to ask around until we find one.
We'll go and ask. You know, say, hey, would you like to do that? I'm sure we'll find someone, and I'm sure someone will come forward too. I'm pretty positive. Yeah.
Ms. Cook, you had your hand up before Mr. Roberts.
I don't think I did, but thank you.
Mr. Robertson?
Well, I'm sitting here wondering why we would have people who don't live in the city, business owners or whatever that is, discussing our city charter, because that, in my opinion, should be the people that live here should be the ones that decide what our charter says, not people that don't live here. So I'm not going to vote for this because of that. I think that's just the wrong thing to do. You know, I have a business, I have, property elsewhere, and I work there. I don't expect that I'm going to go to one of their council meetings or county council meetings or anything else and tell them, what to do with their charter. Charter to me is a personal thing that is meant for the residents of Greenbelt and partially to protect the residents of Greenbelt. So just because someone has a business here doesn't mean that they really care about the city, or they don't care, or they do. I think that's just wrong. They should not be on this. We require all of our other boards and committees, those members to be residents of the city of Greenbelt. And I don't see any reason why this should be any different. Thank you.
Councilmember McKinney.
I'm wondering, maybe as a friendly amendment and sort of an in-between, if the business owner is also a resident, because I think there's lots of business owners like yourself that live in the city.
Well, that doesn't need any kind of motion because they would all, normally anybody who's a resident, yes, should be able to be on the board. But if you're a business owner and you don't live here, I'm sorry, but you don't get to decide what our charter is.
So
Please finish.
So I guess just to restate, I think that there is a lot of perspective that comes from someone who is a business owner, but I agree, being a resident, being someone who is from Greenbelt also provides that. So I think if we can look at maybe an amendment that addresses having a business owner, but they also must be a resident of Greenbelt.
I would agree.
Kind of, you made a good point there, yes. I would agree.
Other comments from council?
Are we going to propose that?
I don't know. Was that a motion? Was there a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Damn it.
Excuse me, watch your language, sir.
Discussion, please, Mr. Mayor.
We're still discussing up here.
We're still discussing, we're voting on amendments, Mr. Orleans, not on the overall motion.
Yes, please. So all in favor.
But actually, I think that my motion was still on the table. I don't think we ever voted on the proposal to add at least one representative of a co-op, who also then, following, yeah, we seconded it, but I don't believe we voted on that one.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and on the second amendment regarding,
We voted on that.
did we?
Yes, we did.
I think,
No, we didn't.
We have to vote again because we're out
You
of
made
order.
the motion, it was seconded. Yeah, there's an outburst. Okay, all in favor.
What are we voting on now?
Now we're voting on the
McKinney's motion. Would you like to restate the motion?
I'd like to make an amendment to the proposal of having Greenbelt businesses sit on the commission, but make sure that if they are a business owner, they are also a Greenbelt resident.
No, we were just, Ms. Pompey seconded that. Yes, and now we can vote.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Is there any additional discussion by council? Well, let's open up. Yes, please.
Well, clarification, for businesses that are co-ops, they might not be the business owners, they are representatives. So
yes,
it's
a
understood
representative
that it's
from
a
a
representative.
member of the co-op is what I was thinking, because all of the members of a co-op are the owners of the co-op, right? So a member of the co-op.
It as well for the business representatives, there may be
Yeah, that's very true.
a Greenbelt resident business that might be structured in a way that an owner is a member, or I'm thinking multi-member LLCs, for example.
I don't think that we're saying that all of the owners of the business need to be Greenbelt residents. Is that what you're asking about? That just at least whoever's on the commission needs to be a Greenbelt resident.
Greenbelt resident.
But it doesn't mean that all of the owners of the business have to be Greenbelt residents. I don't think is what Ms. McKinney was, just the representative on the commission.
Okay, let's open up the floor for public discussion. Mr. Orleans, I want to caution you about these outbursts, please.
Council's discussion tonight is predicated
If
on
you
the
have a
notion-
point, please make it.
Council's discussion tonight is predicated on the notion that this is a sure thing. This time, the mayor acknowledged that I'm Mr. Orleans. Thank you, Ms. Davis. This has come up in the past when council, led by the mayor, was pushing the idea that we need a charter review commission or board, as was suggested by one member of council. And it's a false predicate. When it has been brought up in the past, the mayor assured someone who questioned the continuing over several months reference to the need for a charter review commission is that it's not yet been decided. Well, I accepted that answer at that time, and I would accept it tonight, theoretically. But the fact is that council almost uniformly is intent on adopting this resolution tonight to establish a charter review commission. I would argue that it's not necessary. There was emphasis added by the reader of the reference in the agenda tonight, state mandated charter review change process. I would like someone on council or in city management to explain to us what the state mandated charter review change process is. It's very simple. Greenbelt has done it in the past without a need for a charter review commission or board. When a member of council introduces a resolution to amend the charter, there's a public hearing, after which council votes whether or not to amend the charter. It's done it in the past when it chooses to, when it wanted to, and it's chosen not to do it in the past when it doesn't want to. And for many years now, there have been suggestions made by residents to amend the charter to read this, to amend the charter to do that, or another thing, and council has sat on it. We're thankfully tonight coming to some final resolution of one long proposed charter change, although the way it reads to me is problematic. It doesn't require a commission or board. If it did, if I were to concede that it did, it does not need 15 members appointed by council representing the business stakeholders and various areas of the city. Those who would wish to be, much like on the Reparations Commission, those who would wish to be in a body to consider the charter, and again, it's not necessary, but if council is going to move in that direction, then simply accept self-nominated petitions from residents to serve on a committee to review the charter. This is a wholly elaborate, unnecessary, I'm convinced it's a procedure to delay for even at least 9 months and then more months while council considers the final recommendations of this commission. It's unnecessary. Will someone please explain to me the charter review change, state mandated charter review change process?
Yeah, thank you so much. This charter task force is a proposal from staff actually devising a way to approach this periodic review. The best practice, as far as I know, and I talk to a lot of people, is to review charters every 10 years or so. Legal requirements on the state level, the county level as well, change from time to time. So it was council's intention to actually do this before the pandemic, but then the pandemic happened. So we're here now. The proposal has actually been put forth by the city administration, and that's what we're talking about tonight. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I think a couple of points to that. I think it is actually important not to just do it piecemeal, but to actually do a comprehensive review, which is what this commission proposes to do. But that does not preclude us from making other changes. For example, the one that we'll be discussing separately later. I do not believe that it is, from my conversations with my colleagues, I do not believe it is our intention to wait until after the charter review process to make that charter change that will be, well, we're not going to make it tonight. Tonight is just a discussion. I don't think it's on for a vote tonight, but that the filling the vacancies, I don't believe it is our intention to wait until after the charter review process. So there's nothing that is precluding us from making individual changes, but I think it is actually important to do a holistic review, and that is something that my understanding is has not happened in quite some time. So they can be two completely separate things. And I think Mr. Salmarone maybe, or Mr. George may be able to explain this more, but I believe the mandated process is that it has to be up for different readings, and it has a 40-day period, and then you have to wait to allow people to collect petitions if they want it to be a referendum. I believe that's what's being referred to into the state mandated process. So any recommendations that the Charter Review Board makes will then have to go through that process and be formally changed in the charter. So they are making recommendations, that larger body, as well as with advice from the advisory boards, all those things that are in the memo, that then council will still have to go through the same charter review process. But I actually very much disagree with you that I think that doing it piecemeal is actually not the way to go about it. Sometimes you do that, but sometimes you need a bigger look, and that's what I think we're trying to take on with this commission.
If I may ask,
Yeah,
the
no,
mayor,
you may
can I
not.
ask the city
Mr.
manager to
Mr.
respond as
Salmarone,
to
would you like
whether
to comment
the
on this?
totality
Sir,
of what
will you
Ms. Weaver
please
just said was
sit
entirely
down?
accurate.
I would like
So,
to.
Mr. Summerone, would you like to comment on what Mayor Pro Tem just said and what was previously said before
Yes,
Mr. Roberts weighs in?
all of that's correct. This was a process that the city, under the direction of council, wanted to embark on prior to the pandemic. The pandemic hit, and the staff and council could not get into creating a committee to do a comprehensive review of the charter. It is a best practice to review the charter with some on a regular basis to ensure that your charter is meeting state and federal requirements. The proposal, that particular language that Mr. Bill Orleans is raising questions about, is actually to inform the public that the commission itself is not making any changes to the charter, that any proposed recommendation will come to council and would follow the state required process to make a charter amendment, which would be a resolution, 2 readings, a hearing. So it is there designed for the purpose to ensure that the public is aware of any proposed changes, and those changes will follow a process.
Yeah.
Specifically,
Mr. Roberts,
if I may
please.
address what Ms.
Mr.
Weaver
Roberts,
said, it's the 40
please,
days.
Mr. Orleans, this is not a back and forth. I'd like to ask you to sit down. Sir.
That's correct, because that's the way the state law is set up, Mr. Orleans.
Council from introducing a resolution to amend the charter, holding a public hearing, and then voting to do so. The 40 days.
Right. I don't,
Mr.
yes, that's
Orleans,
correct.
I want to address the state mandated process. The problem with this whole thing is that the state mandated process, which allows voters the 40 days to collect petitions, is no longer possible for the citizens of Greenbelt to get the number of signatures required because of the changes in our voting system. You know, when we changed from having our own voting rolls to going to the county voting rolls, it inflated the rolls greatly. And so the amount of percentage that the residents would have to go out and get is unrealistic and almost impossible, at least for a small group of people. You would have to have a major thing with a lot of people out there getting signatures to have a chance to be able to do that. So until we reform that, and until we make it realistically possible for the residents to do a petition drive and be successful, then this is not real. You know, there's no chance right now that they can be successful. And I know because I did one, you know, not too long ago. And yeah, so that's the problem I see with this, and ultimately I don't know why I would vote for this, because I think it's just setting up a situation where the citizens really have no say. They don't. I mean, because once the council votes on once the council votes on this, that's it. It's gonna go through, because there's no way the citizens can get that number of signatures to have a referendum on any of the issues in here. So
If council votes to adopt
so
this
that-
commission,
so-
will you-
include no
should
members
I-
of council and
would
no
you-
staff.
that's it.
Mr. Summerone, would you remove this gentleman from council chambers? Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I would just point out that the purpose of having this broad process, including a committee that is formed of residents as well as public feedback from the public, from our advisory boards, is so that the charter amendments that we propose have the support and are coming from residents through those processes.
15 people on a board
it's not
is
just,
not
Mr. Roberts, I'm
representative.
not finished yet.
1,000
It's
people.
not just 15 people on the commission, it's also the public meetings, it's also referring things to all of our advisory boards, which is actually, if you count all of them, that's over 100 people, right, on our 15 advisory boards. So I think I would disagree with you that we're not getting public input on this process. We are not necessarily sending single charter change to a referendum, no, but we are getting the plan is, I mean, you saw the plan for public meetings council work sessions, all of this engagement through various methods to get public feedback before the committee's recommendations.
If you want the citizens to really be able to have a say in this process, then you need to change the percentage of votes needed to have a referendum.
That's we can't
That
speak.
needs to be
Perhaps
changed.
that would be a
first.
recommendation that might
needs
come
to be
out of the
changed
task force.
first.
I'd really like to impanel this task force. I think it's a democratic way of getting public input from a variety of sections of the city. So are there other, Mr. Gasper, did you have a comment?
You agree that we need a charter update? Do you agree on that? That we need to look at it and there has to
I think
be
there are
some
things
changes?
that I don't agree with in the charter that I would like to see changed, but no, I'm not in favor of just wholly looking at our charter, because I think our charter is like our Constitution. A lot of people would like to change our Constitution of the United States, but it's intentionally very hard, and I think it should be intentionally very hard to change our charter. And the citizens should have a realistic way of being involved in that and being able to have a referendum, and that's not possible right now.
I thank you. Mr. Gasper, please.
Yes, this is Fred Gasper. I'd like to point out that I totally support and agree with what Mr. Roberts is saying. That most of the people, I could see all of the people and maybe one person you could consider them like a devil's advocate with another perspective in the board that would be making these decisions, having them from Greenbelt, but having somebody else who has some serious experience and knowledgeability about such decision-making that's going to be taken care of about the Greenbelt Charter might be a very good role to fill also. Roles and goals is where you get your accomplishments. Somebody very knowledgeable to help the people that are making the decisions that know more about the city of Greenbelt is what I'd like to express. And I also feel that, Mr. Jordan, Mayor Jordan, what you're saying, that the people need to be included in, and Rodney, Mr. Roberts was also saying this, that they need to be included in these opportunities to see what the possible changes could be. And sometimes, speaking as a resident, those things get lost in the shuffle, and not everybody who has an input is able to be there. So a little bit more of an extensive plan would be a wise choice.
Thank you. Mr. Rand?
Hi, Bob Rand, 19 Ridge Road. I just wanted to point out that from my perspective, the resolution and also the memo from staff make rather scant reference to DEI. There is a reference to DEI in both, which I assume refers to Tyra Smith. I just think she needs some support. If the code is going to be reviewed for to take a look at some of the, as Privacy indicated, the gaps and threats and opportunities for inclusivity, diversity, and equity, I think that needs a little bit of more legal support. Thanks for your consideration.
Well, thank you. Other comments? So at this point, why don't we go ahead and take a vote? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. McKinney?
Yes.
Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Ms. Pope? Ms. Niesel?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
No.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
The motion carries.
The motion does carry. So in the memo, there's a timeline. So here we are, it's almost November. As far as appointments to this task force, what's your best guess? When do you think we'll be able to work that in? December?
Well, yeah, well, the thought is that the staff and legal research would begin immediately, and really kind of looking at the timeline for the reparations in terms of getting the word out and then having the interviews and sitting that commission. We were thinking a 2-month time period in order to get the word out so the residents had enough notice of what it was and have some communication, and then have the standard interview process you were going through, and then within 2 months, it could be 3 months, depending on the holiday season. So we wouldn't rush to sit the commission necessarily. We're not stalling, but we would give enough time for residents to be informed, businesses be informed, and then council would go through their process. And then once we get into that process, this timeline would start, and we'd kind of, so it's really kind of 9 months once the board is sat, and then kind of take off with all due haste. And I do want to just make a point. If you look at the timeline we've recommended, there are 4 different public meetings that we're recommending.
Right.
An initial kickoff meeting to gather just general thoughts from the residents, 2 separate open meetings for discussion, and then a council work session. So all of those sessions would happen even before the final set of formal recommendations were brought forward. So we were very, very deliberate in making sure that the residents had a lot of opportunity to get in. And those meetings, we can certainly set them up in the evenings, on the weekends, during the day, to make sure that we're hitting a broad brush of residents, and not all at night and all where people with children might not be able to do it. So we're going to work those meetings around. But resident input is critical to this being successful. And I want to make sure you understood that we had that filter through the whole process.
Yeah, thank you so much. Councilmember McKinney.
Just a couple of questions related to the implementation of it. Is the plan that the communication out to the residents will also be translated into, okay. That's my first question. And then my second question is, what other communication channels are you going to use to make this announcement? So beyond the news review, I don't know where this aligns with the connector, like if it could go out with that, as well as social media channels, because there will be people who will be looking at that as well.
Yeah, we will, Chandria will basically blast it out where we put everything. So all of our media outlets, will definitely be in the connector. It'll be in the news review multiple times. We will certainly raise this discussion at council meetings leading up to it. So anyone that's watching meetings or checking the minutes thereafter will see it raised. So we will get the word out as often as we can. I think Tyra has really got a good sense of how to get better connected into the West, where we have less representation sometimes. So we're really going to be working on that. I know Bob Rand and his team have done a fantastic job of interfacing in that community. We'll kind of play off of the work that he and Nirvan and Tom have done in terms of gaining access into that community so that we can get the word out as well.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess just one final thought. There's also nothing to say that the committee might not recommend on certain issues that it go to referendum next fall. There could be some things. I mean, I think some of the legal changes that we need to make that are, state law has changed and we need to match. Some of those we just need to do, but there may be some issues, and there may be some issues that are fairly straightforward. I know there's some outdated language in the charter that needs to be updated. I don't think that's controversial. It just needs to be updated. But there may also be some things that, based on public feedback, we determine maybe there isn't a consensus on these issues, and therefore the committee's recommendation is that we put it on for a recommendation in the fall. I mean, not every single thing has to be, it's not one size fits all based on the review of this. There could be different ways to address different issues, because after all, the charter is a big document and there are lots of things in it. And yeah, so that would be another point.
Yeah, changing the charter, it's a weighty matter. It needs to be reviewed on a regular basis, at least every 10 years, if not more frequently. So what we're going to get back from this task force are recommendations. The task force is not making decisions, they're making recommendations. So I'm looking forward to this moving forward. I think that some of the current concerns that have been brought up, or other concerns that we might hear, will be on council's mind as we are conducting interviews or trying to bring people on to the task force. We don't necessarily have to codify every thought, but when people make comments and say things, we take them into consideration. So at this point, and I see Mr. Hurling, you had a comment.
I appreciate all the various sources, sites, and so forth that this would go out to in the community. But one of the constant problems that we have in Greenbelt is getting that word out to. Bill, can I just Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. Anyway, in speaking with the city manager a few months ago, we were talking about the mailing list that the city has. Because you can send it to all the different organizations, and that's great. And obviously the news review as well. But as we all know, unfortunately, we would want everyone in Greenbelt to receive the news review, but that's not the case. So I'm just suggesting that you look into other ways to actually more fully meet the goals that you have, which would include possibly at least considering the idea of sending out a notice, to I think it was it 19,000 addresses, and then that way, no one can say we weren't informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Dr. Rosado.
Lois Rosado, Lake West Drive. When these notices are sent out to the 19,000, are they also in Spanish or other languages?
This case, we will send it out in Spanish.
Okay, thank you. Next, we need to move on to item number 12, the Board of Elections Report 2024-04, provisions and proposed amendments regarding council vacancies. And this is in reference to the report 2024-4. On July 29th, the City Council met with the Board of Elections to review and discuss the report, which outlined recommended procedures for filling a vacant council seat. During tonight's meeting, the council will revisit these recommendations, discuss them in detail, and provide feedback to the Board of Elections. On August the 12th, 2024, the Greenbelt Board of Elections submitted a revised report 2024-04, proposing 2 recommendations to amend City Charter Section 32 regarding council vacancies. Let's see, Beth Terry and Steve Gilbert are here from the Board of Elections. I don't know if you'd like to step up to the microphone. And I'm not sure that we're going to have a detailed discussion of this tonight, but we are going to review the information and talk about next steps.
Correct.
So, yeah, Mr. Summerall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to aid that discussion, James put together a nice graphic outlining the options. So you can read the, I don't remember how many pages is the report, or you can look at that one page.
I do note one thing based on Ms. Davis's comments. I think we need to swap the Greenbelt East, West, and Center there on the right-hand side. Under where it says public hearings in each city area, instead of saying East Greenbelt Central West, it should Greenbelt East, West, Central, and Greenbelt West. So we just need to get James to swap those.
There you go. So there are 2 proposed ways that we can go. The first charter amendment, and there's a second method. So could you concisely describe the 2 methods, or just, I don't know if you've seen this wonderful graphic, but it sort of breaks it down graphically.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of, does the charter get amended with all of the details of the plan, or does the charter just simply say that vacancies will be filled according to the specifications in the code, and then all the details go in the code rather than in the charter?
So what you've just described, the first option is where it's just pretty much as it is now, leaving the decision to council for the most part.
No.
I'm saying that wrong. So, but the second option is very, very explicit in terms of time frames when it's a special election.
Right. I think and you can confirm this, but I believe the idea is that if you were to go with the first option, then we would then amend the code to include all these details in the code. The thing at the top, present charter provisions, that's just saying what it is right now.
Right.
Both options have the same details in terms of how it's done. It's
Right.
just, do we amend the charter or do we amend the code?
Okay. So,
Ms. Terry is referring to the report that we have, and that may or may not be in front of you. But what you have is the graphic that explains the process with the dates depending on when the vacancy occurs. So that may be what you want to talk about.
right, I do have that in front of me. I can read it. I was talking with the city manager today, and I think I may have brought this up to council as well. I think when a proposal like this to change the charter goes forward, I think what we've done in the past is we've actually, to the extent where it's possible, published it in the news review so everybody can kind of take a look at it and digest it, maybe have a public hearing, and then act on it. So one of my colleagues, or at least one, maybe two of my colleagues, sort of said the same thing, that they were not quite ready to act on this tonight, but wanted to discuss it a little bit further. Am I correct?
I don't think it's on. I thought it was just
It's for
on as a discussion
yes.
item. It was not on for action tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is figuring out, I don't mean to interrupt Mr. Roberts, part of it is figuring out what we want to do. Like, do we want to amend the charter or do we want to amend the code? I mean, I think that's sort of the biggest decision we really have to make. I mean, I think either way, we should have public hearings and, and make sure it's published and people know. But I think that's the biggest difference to me, is if it's, because I think from my understanding from our previous meeting is that if we amend the code, that's a bit of a simpler process, and then it's easier for us to change it later if we determine that we want to. Whereas the charter, as the mayor has said earlier, this is, it's very serious to amend the charter. It's a really big deal, and it's has more permanence, I guess. So I think that's kind of a big discussion point for us tonight.
Yeah. Mr. Roberts?
Mayor,
So, Mr. Gilbert?
Mr. Mayor, what I thought we were doing tonight was getting instruction from the council on how you want to go with these two items.
No.
You have to amend the charter
Way.
either but with reference to the code or by including all of these dates in the charter. So in either case, you're amending section 32 as it reads now.
I'm
And you'll need public hearings for both of those things.
Yeah. I'm not in favor of either one of these scenarios. I'm in favor of the scenario where if there's a vacancy, if there's, if it's 60 days or less to an election, leave the seat open. Any more than that, it goes to a vote of the voters. The voters elect the city council. Under no circumstance will I vote to continue the process of the city council electing members to their ranks. It's not appropriate, and it should be up to the voters in every scenario, except for when it's too close to election and you just leave the seat open. And in that case, you're allowing the voters to elect a new person. Because if you appoint someone within 60 days, that's given them an unfair advantage, I believe. So 60 days or less, it gets left open. Anything more than 60 days, the voters decide. In that case, I don't know if you mean that in the first option, where it goes by, how the election goes, that we would have an election. I don't know how, I'm not really clear on what you mean on that. But in my opinion, it has to be the voters that elect the council members, because this last go around where the council appointed someone, I'm sorry, but it was a horrible process. It was not fair to anyone, and it's clear that needs to be changed. The voters must be the electors of the city council, in my opinion.
Well, I think what they've laid out here, 0 to 60 days until an election, the seat can remain vacant or filled at council's discretion. 60 to 180 days, council fills the seat by majority vote after a public hearing. But anytime it's 100 days or more, it definitely goes to a special mail-in election. So I think this really covers the possible scenarios that would come up. it allows council some discretion in just unanticipated situations. And there's a special scenario in here where if there are 3 or more vacancies that occur simultaneously, a special election certainly would be required. But I'm thinking, just reading this, going through the hearings, I think amending it through the code does just things happen, and it's good to actually have some discretion based on the situation. So what I'd really like to do is I'd like to publish this, get some more input, and then take an action. Mayor Pro Tem.
I think Ms. Terry looks like she has something she wanted to
I just
say.
wanted to make a comment to Mr. Roberts' statement. There's no, if there were a vacancy on the council 61 days before an election, it's not possible for us to hold an election before that election.
Well, maybe it doesn't need to be 60 days, but I think there needs to be a realistic number, that it just been left, But, the main thing that I'm worried about, I don't think it's appropriate for council to be electing people to the city council. It just, my experience with the last go around showed that it was not a good process, period. And it wasn't fair, and that's all. Whether you like the person that was elected or not, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the process. And the process was not good, in my opinion.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Because it was not, there was no public
How-
input.
I would just ask, so under this scenario, I think part of it is the practicality of running a special election and the time frame that is required to do that reasonably. And clearly 61 days, there's no possibility. But you're experts, you've run Greenbelt elections. I know Steve's been doing this for a long time. 180 days or more. It seems like 180 days, was that discussed as being about the right amount of time? You would need at least that much time, 180 days or more, to sort of feasibly run a special election. Well, how did that number point come? Because I understand the 60 days, that's very close to an election. At that point, people are already campaigning. But where did that 180 number come from?
That was sort of a compromise among the board members based on what we thought would be a practical way of doing the election. And in response to the various comments that have been made, your present Section 32 of the Charter has to be amended in some way to avoid future occurrences as happened after the last election. If that makes sense. In other words, even if you say 60 days or 90 days, whatever it is, or you put it all in the code, you have to amend Section 32.
Because what the charter right now, doesn't allow for a special election unless there are more than 2 vacancies.
Right.
So right now, we didn't have that option based on our charter. We had to follow. Our charter says was basically council elects by a majority vote the replacement. Right. This is actually, Mr. Roberts, solving the problem that you felt that we didn't really legally have that option, but now we would for a vacancy if, God forbid, something similar happens or someone chooses to resign, that far before that's close after the beginning of a term. This creates a process that we did not have the option of before. So I think this solves the problem.
We did have an option.
We
before
didn't. The
because-
charter didn't allow us,
because
Mr. Roberts.
Vague.
No, it's
that
very
we
specific,
could-
actually.
We left that seat unfilled, and we should have.
Oh, we could have done that, yeah.
That's what should have happened.
So-
Because
And why
that's,
said we couldn't?
that's what the charter allows us to do. It does. So, in effect, the charter is kind of beautiful because it is so open-ended on that question.
It's actually not.
And it gives you a lot of leeway.
It's really not,
and
Mr.
there was
Roberts.
and we did not have to fill that seat.
So I just think that the proposals that have come forward from the Board of Elections, very, very thoughtful. I think, I just think that it's going to take a little while longer for the proposals to soak in to the general public. So if there are any other suggestions or any other ideas that come up. We need to just allow a little more time for that to happen. So I'd like to ask that we publish the proposal in the news review, have a public hearing, and then come back about 30 days from now, maybe a little bit more, but around that, and then move ahead.
Right, I'll just point out that what section 32 says now is you shall fill the vacancy
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
That's right, as soon
Those
as possible.
exact words. So,
By majority vote.
And it doesn't say that we can't have an election either. The current one would allow us to have an election.
Council has to vote to
Right.
choose the person.
Right, that's what we discussed that at length when that all happened, and that word shall was another stumbling block. And I understand you didn't like the process, and I myself was a little bit outspoken on how this all went, but we need to have something in place, because it could happen again, and we really need, because it took us a little bit longer because we're all over the place. We didn't know what to do, and of course it never happened before. So, but there needs to be something, but I think it should be discussed a little bit more and fleshed out, so we're all know
So
what
the
we're
public
doing.
knows.
Yeah, and of course make it public, of course.
Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you for doing the initial work, and this graphic is great.
Yeah.
And thank you to their team for doing that. I think maybe if we can, there are basically two decisions or two actions that need to be taken, right? There's the action around, is it a code amendment, and the charter amendment. I just want to make sure we're rephrasing so everybody understands it. And then there's the discussion about the timeframes for when the election or appointment needs to happen. And I think making sure people are clear that there's actually two actions that we would like their feedback on is what we need to do. But I would also say we do not want to end up in the same position that we were last time. So we want to be able to make sure we have adequate feedback, but we don't want to wait too long so that, God forbid, something were to happen and we are in the same position again. So, I hope that we can move forward, and I'm not sure the time frame, Mr. Samarone, of when we can have this out and posted quickly and be able to set up meetings so that people can give feedback to resolve it.
Two questions to that. One, do you have any proposed changes to how this information is presented? Is there area that you think that needs clarity? If it's ready to go, we could get this up this week. We couldn't get it into the paper until next week, but we can get it out to our 19,000 subscribers or social media or our website by the end of the week, because we have the graphics already.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have some suggestions and I can just do it. I think it's just minor,
Okay.
just formatting and layout so that you can see up here, there's the first choice and then there's
Yeah,
the detail that needs
I
to happen.
think that's the one thing that I could see people getting confused about, is right now it looks like the first choice is this column and the second choice is all of this timeline stuff. So if we can make it very clear that the first choice is it all in the code, or sorry, is it all in the charter, or is it charter plus code changes? And then but the second part is what would be the process, and that would be in either the code or the charter, depending on our response to the first choice.
Okay, I think we can work on that.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that everyone in Greenbelt has been following this.
Yes, of course.
Do we need to write a summary of what has led to this point? Okay.
Well, I think we need to point out that these are not the only two scenarios. I don't want to send something out that has only two choices, because as far as I'm concerned, we need to sit down. Maybe we can't do it at this meeting. Maybe we need a work session or more, but we need to work out, exactly what we would want. So that way people have a good idea that it's not just these two, what we have on the paper tonight. This needs to go. We need to have more options than this.
We've had those work sessions, Mr. Roberts.
We have, and
Yeah,
this
but
is
not,
the work of
how
the
long
Board of
ago
Elections came up
was
with these
that?
scenarios.
How long ago was that?
August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Well,
why
that's
I'm
a
saying
long
we need to
time.
publish this, have a public
August
hearing.
is not that long ago.
So, I think we can get this done before the end of the year. I think we can get this done before December. Yeah, Amy. I'm sorry, Councilman Niesel.
Thanks. I would just ask that, can we make I think the clock is supposed to be a 2-year term.
Yes.
Can we make it so that everything is to scale? Because, right, I think that shouldn't the 60 days be 5 minutes? I don't know. I'm not good at math. Don't fact check me. It seems to, the scale isn't clear to me and it's really hanging me up.
Maybe if it was digital instead of analog.
Sorry, I did have one more thing. I would like to actually link to the election code instead of saying, please go to our website and find it.
Okay, and we could put a QR code to make that
Unless
easier
maybe
as
that
well.
is actually linked there and it's only the short one.
Possible. I'll make sure that URL is complete and we'll put in a URL code. The clock is on a 2-year term and it's an approximation, so it may not be accurate. 2 years, we can put a disclaimer at the bottom that the clock represents a 2-year term. And we could put percentages that 160 days is roughly 8 to 25% of a 2-year term.
Okay.
You don't need to do all. I think that's what the graphic represents. Just, I don't.
Make sure that the proportions are accurate.
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember McKinney, and then there's a couple of comments. Please, go ahead.
So maybe not a summary is needed, but maybe it's a specific question so that you're directing people like to Mr. Roberts' points. There may be other things that people want to weigh in on. So if we're asking people the question for their feedback around, is there another option that you see that is not laid out here? We could open that up, or we could give a second option. Like, I don't want to open the floodgate, but I do think people need to be directed to be able to give feedback on the timeline if there is an alternative that may make sense. Does that?
It does, and I'm trying to get clear what our directions are, because we are responding to the recommendation that the Board of Elections made to council before the work session to council and after the work session to council. This has already been discussed with the council as a body, so we are responding to that recommendation. So
That's kind of how I'm feeling about it. I feel like we've gone through these machinations. We've heard from the Board of Elections. They've actually modified their proposal. So, I think these recommendations are the ones that we want to put forward. And for me, it's more of an exercise in just informing the public about what council is about to do, more so than saying, hey, do you have some great new ideas? More so, this is what we are about to actually vote on at some point in the very near future. So I don't know how comfortable you are with that scenario or how you can articulate that, but I don't think opening it up.
I just think if you put it out there and don't say anything about what you're asking them to put them out, you need to say what you're asking them for. That's all I'm saying. So just be clear about what the question is, not to open the floodgate for that, but just posting something. People may not understand what you're wanting to get back from them.
For me, it's for your information. These are the options that we are about to consider. We got a couple of public comments. Yeah, please.
I'm just a little confused because if we proposed this as either a code or amendment or a code amendment and a charter amendment or just a charter amendment, wouldn't we then have public hearings about this when we did that? Wouldn't we hear from people then? So I'm just wondering why we would do it first. Like, why do we, because we have had a work session on it. It's on the agenda now, so people do know what we're doing. I mean, our agenda is public. So I feel like it would be a little confusing to post this amendment that's not really an amendment. It's just text that we've already posted a lot of times, and we're going to have a pre-hearing. I don't know. This just seems like we have a process for this. So I don't know why we would have a hearing about this before we would have hearings. You know what I mean? Like, we have a process. We have a process where we have hearings anyways. So
Could the Board of Elections people here, could you say exactly what would happen under option 1? What happens? Someone resigns, 60 days after the election or whatever it is. And what happens?
Option 1 and 2 are exactly the same in terms of what will happen. It's just that under option 1, the charter only gets amended to refer to the code, and then all the details are in the code. Under option 2, all the details are in the charter.
So in both options, the council can appoint a person to them. Is that what you're saying? The council has the ability to appoint
if it's
that
less
person.
than 180 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we need another option that doesn't allow council. I think we should ask the voters, do you want the council to appoint other council members, or do you want to be able to vote on who your council member is going to be? Should we have an election, and do you want to be able to vote in that election? That's what we should be asking our citizens, because that's the question here, as far as I'm concerned. Should it be as it is? Well, actually, as it is right now, council, I believe, has the option of having a vote, but has not been willing to do that. So I think we need to change it so there is no option for the council to appoint a member. That the members should be elected by the people of Greenbelt. And I think we should make that clear to people that that's what's going on here. It's either going to be council appointing or it's going to be the voters deciding. And that's what needs to be made clear, in my opinion, because that's what I want.
Are you saying that you think that in any length of time, either it's a vote or it's a council?
I don't think the council should be appointing anyone to the city council. I think there should be that people should be elected. I mean, in the past, in the last go around, we could have easily had an election to fill that seat.
Yes,
and
with
you
all
know,
due respect.
okay, if you want to have some rules regarding the time frame and whatnot on having it should either be the time frame should either involve having an election or leaving the seat open, in my opinion. That's what it should be.
Thank you.
It's
you,
either close
Mr.
enough to
Roberts.
the election that the seat is left open, or there's an election.
So, in my humble opinion, we've been down this road, we've talked about this, and I sense there's a consensus of council. Not that we are not in concurrence. Actually, I do think the majority of council does not necessarily share your opinion. So on this issue, I just want to post this for your information so people know that this is about to happen. And I'm not so interested in presenting new options. I think that this has been thoroughly vetted. We've had more than one work session. There's been modifications. So all I want to do is really just post this so people know that it's coming up, that we're about to do, so that we don't hear, well, you guys didn't tell us you were about to do this. So I think anytime we change the charter, I think there should be a hearing. There should be an opportunity where people see this. It should be blasted out widely, and that's all that I'm trying to do. We've got two comments from Jay Davis and from Conrad Hurling. Ms. Davis, please.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. God forbid we should ever have to go through what you went through last year with 2 vacancies. We'd handled one, and then we had another serious one, and it's almost an anniversary of that occurrence, so we have to keep some respect here. I applaud the Board of Elections in coming up with a very succinct, very professional, very detailed way of handling it. Any other way, we're going to go back to what we were before. And I know that Mr. Roberts, no matter what you decide tonight or what is decided 3 months from now or a year from now, will never agree with it. So just go forward with what you have already by consensus said, this is what we're going to do. Now, if we print it, then I am assuming that it's going to come up as a council agenda item to decide. And then if it's going to become a charter amendment, then you go the charter amendment process, which is a public hearing. And then if people have a problem with any part of it, they can come up and say that. The way that it's taking you so long that by the time you get around to making a decision, we might have another situation, and you don't want that. I think we can take care of this fairly soon. And just as a reminder, and I know it was brought up at the beginning of the discussion, but that was a half hour ago, if you are reprinting this, please put Greenbelt East, Greenbelt Center, and Greenbelt West. I know that you say, well, we'll just take the same graphic and just do it, but please make that change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hurling, did you have a comment?
Thank you. Yeah, I think given the situation that we had, the result would have been if we waited for a special election at that time, we would have had a council of 6 members. And it is easy to envision times when, believe it or not, there are 3 to 3 votes. You know, for the sake of serving the 25,000 Greenbelters, it was incumbent, I think, for council, and of course it was the late, it's hard to say, still hard to say, it's the late council member, Rick Gordon, who nominated me to come in for that 3-month period. And it felt that it was something that was necessary, and I would hope that in the changes that are recommended by the board, that situation where you want to prevent a scenario where you only have 6 people, or in some cases 5, that that's not going to be left out of the discussion, because it doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough to be of concern. So I'm hoping that, and I really applaud the board for the work that they've been doing, but I'm hoping that that scenario will be taken into consideration, because I think all 7 seats for this 25,000 Greenbelters need to be filled.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. So if there is no additional discussion, staff, do you have adequate direction on how to proceed?
Yes, we will publish this as soon as possible everywhere.
Okay. And Beth Terry and Steve Gilbert, thank you for your perseverance, your patience, your wisdom as we move forward. This is, charter, changing the code of the charter, changing the way that we fill council vacancies is something that needs to be publicized very widely. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And no, we don't. It's a discussion item, sir.
Tell the staff to take a direction and there's no vote on it.
Do that frequently, sir.
Well, not on an issue like this, we don't.
The premise of a direction to staff was the council's acceptance of the report back in August. By acceptance of the report, council was accepting the recommendation from the Board of Election. That was noted in the consent agenda item.
Look at any other instance where we accept anything from a board, we vote on it. And this should be no different.
We've already accepted this.
Taking council actions without voting is inappropriate. And I want to vote on it because I want to vote against it. I'm not happy with where
Make a
we're
motion
going.
to oppose this?
I don't need to make a motion to oppose it. It should be voted on by per our rules of action. That's our requirement. We vote on, when we take an action, we vote on that action. And this is taking an action. This is telling the city staff to do something. They're expending taxpayer funds to do that. So if we're extending taxpayer funds, we need to vote on that.
Yeah, respectfully, I disagree with you. This is a discussion item. We're giving direction to staff. I don't think we do need to vote on it.
That's the law. If you disagree with your own law, then fine. But I don't agree.
Council, would you like to vote on this, or I think it's.
We accepted a report some time back, and now we're just gonna ask for further,
Just asking for.
for a few changes.
Correction.
This was the Board of Elections following up after the work session, Mr. Roberts.
Not accepting the report, we're taking an action.
We're gonna go ahead
We're
and
just
move on.
accepting the report, I'd be fine with that. But if you're gonna take an action, you vote on it. What's the big deal?
Given direction of what change we want on the flyer and print it in a newspaper, that's a direction, that's not
Okay.
taking an action.
Well, thank you. So item number 17, actually, which we've moved up to item number 14, is the discussion of a budget request from the, did I miss
I
something?
think we have 13 first.
An armory, feasibility study.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, the Greenbelt Armory feasibility consultant recommendation. The City Council allocated American Rescue Plan lost revenue funds to conduct a feasibility and use study of the Greenbelt Armory property. The proposed feasibility study will consist of a complete evaluation of the current conditions and the extent of damages to the National Guard Greenbelt Armory building, approximately 21,500 square feet, and site approximately 8 acres. The feasibility study will also include the projected cost to remediate any environmental hazards, projected cost to renovate the facility, and the analysis of 3 development concepts. Number 1, a new municipal building and mixed-use space. Number 2, a new fire station. Number 3, a contractor-provided recommendation based on the feasibility work and stakeholder input. This feasibility study will also include meeting with residents, key stakeholders, council, and staff to discuss the potential uses of the property. The RFP was posted on the city's website and the state EMMA project site. From those 2 placements, the city received interest from 40 contractors and received 16 proposal submissions. The long list of 16 proposals was reviewed by the acting public works director and staff and was reduced to 4 finalists. During the best and final offer round of the selection process, 4 proposals were reviewed, 3 of which moved on to the final in-person interview phase as they fell within the competitive range. So there are 3 proposals that are currently being considered. While we believe all 4 firms are qualified to provide the services requested, the proposal submitted by AMAR Group represents the best value for the city. AMAR is a local firm located in Washington, D.C., and shows a strong understanding of Greenbelt. The needed work and findings to come from this armory study and need for comprehensive stakeholder engagement are embodied in the proposal. Staff recommends the council accept the proposal from the AMR Group. That would be a feasibility study for the Greenbelt Armory and authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with the AMAR at a cost not to exceed $166,000. City Manager Somerung and Mr. George, can you cue this up? I see we have contractors or consultants from the AMAR Group here with us.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a follow-up to numerous conversations that have been held over the 4 years. We're delighted to finally have received the deed for the property that's been recorded. So we've not only taken legal possession of the property, but we physically secured the space, have cleaned up. There were numerous graffiti issues on the property. We have seen clean up. There were some safety issues. So we're well on our way to stabilize the property. Next step is to figure out what we want to do with this incredible opportunity in front of us, and we need a team to guide us through that process. And after reviewing numerous well-qualified proposals, we have identified AMR Group as the ideal partner to move forward together and help us vet the 3 concepts as the mayor has described to identify what are the best uses, what does the community envision for this space. So this is going to be a very collaborative process. It has a component of what council and staff has already identified as a potential use, which is that municipal service use and fire station. The team will help us identify the best use for it and work with us on a process to get that feedback from residents to identify what they believe, what they feel will be the best use of the space. So I think through that process, there will be no opportunity to go unheard or considered. So, Tim, George, you want to add anything to this?
No, that's good.
Introduce the team?
So Taylor Imes Thomas is the lead of that team, and she's going to take us through a brief presentation that describes her team a little bit, takes us through the scope, and then we'll can answer some questions from council.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and also I want to thank Josue, Tim, and Brian for making the recommendation for AMAR Group. Again, my name is Talora Imes Thomas. I'm an associate principal with AMAR Group, and I'm also joined by Kelly Cronin, who is one of our consultants. She represents WJE, who is our building envelope consultant. Can we go to next slide? So Amar Group was started 33 years ago by Janelle Anderson. We are an architecture, third-party inspections and civil engineering firm in DC, Black-owned, women-owned company. And our team members include not only Janelle, but Milton Evering, who is the PE and quality assurance and quality control leader, Cynthia Johnson, who is also a registered architect, who will act as our technical lead, and Eric is our CAD BIM Reviteer. And then I will be the point of contact both internally and externally for the project. Next slide, please. But of course, we don't do this by ourselves. So even though we're the architectural lead, our team is much more broad than that. And we've put together an outstanding group of certified engineers to work with us for the feasibility and also moving forward into the stakeholder engagement process, as well as producing the renderings for the project. So our team members include Henry Adams, which is our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection engineers. And Kelly, I'll let you introduce yourself. Okay. Kelly Cronin, who is representing WJE, which is our building envelope. They're also our building hazardous testers and also our structural engineers for the project. AMT, who is our civil and landscape architects, Joe Meeberger, who's representing ECS, which is our geotechnical and site hazardous consultants, and finally we have Toscano, Clements, and Taylor, who is our cost estimators for the project. Next slide. Just a little bit on some of the work that we've done in the past that's relevant to the work that we're looking to do with you for the Armory. Amar Group has been engaged with a lot of different local agencies and federal agencies to provide feasibility studies. One of those was the Anacostia Boathouse. Another one was with OSE, where we conducted a series of visioning exercises as well to come up with consensus for the projects. One of the other projects that we worked on that was relevant is the Grimke School project in Washington, D.C. This project we worked on prior to joining Amar Group, but it's relevant experience, both in size. This project got historic preservation approval. We started with the feasibility study, and then we determined that the existing facades were worth preserving. So we worked in conjunction with WJE, which is Kelly's team, and they were able to prescribe a method for weatherproofing the existing facades so that we could reuse them for the new tenant fit out. In addition to that, on the rear, we felt it was feasible to add a 3-story addition to the rear of the building, which housed the studios for that architecture firm. And then the last one is Millie's Restaurant. This one we were tasked with providing a 120-seat outdoor amenity in Georgetown. We were able to gain that approval. We provided a couple of features here, which included using the garage doors, which really opened up the space between interior and exterior. And also we utilized stamped concrete that mimicked a Dutch cobblestone. Utilizing that allowed the client to save quite a bit of money. So we do look for other efforts to save the city on money. Next slide. In addition, our consultants have provided their relevant experience. We have a project that's in Towson, Maryland, that Henry Adams put together. and it's for another Maryland National Guard Armory, which is roughly the same square footage, 21,000 square feet facility. They started with an assessment of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection systems, and then put together a report with recommendations that were followed subsequent to that time. And Kelly, I'm going to let you talk about this Penn State project very quickly.
Hi, thank you again for letting us come and present to you guys. I'm Kelly Cronin. I'm with WJE. I'm a licensed engineer and registered waterproofing consultant. I specialize in repair and restoration of existing buildings. My company has worked on several projects. One project that is somewhat similar to the Armory project is Old Main over at Penn State University. We did a condition assessment and an investigation of the building to identify what needed to be repaired. We did an investigation of the roof, the walls, the windows, the doors, any exterior metal components. We had a structural engineering team. We had a historic preservation team. This building is actually a registered historic landmark. And then we met with representatives from the greater Penn State area and actually led focus groups to help prioritize what repairs needed to be done. And then we led a design build team to restore the building.
And then the final one, thank you, Kelly. And then the final one is the Southern Area Aquatic and Rec Center. This one was produced by AMT. For this project, they put together an integrated stormwater management plan, and they also incorporated a trail design, which we thought was really very interesting here. Next slide. So the project schedule, just breaking it down, we feel that this will take approximately 20 weeks to complete the full process. Within task one, we see that being 3 weeks time, and that's where we'll start with the field observation, and we'll also have some of our team members start with the testing, and then we will move into the conditions assessment. For task two, we will start the feasibility study and then propose recommendations based on the deficiencies that we identified in task one. And this is also the phase where we will start with the cost analysis. Task three, we anticipate that taking approximately 10 weeks, and we'll go into a little bit more in the subsequent slides. But in this phase, this is where we're starting to investigate whether it makes sense to move forward with municipal office, mixed-use space, firehouse, or other use for this. Some of our initial findings when we did the pre-bid was we felt very strongly that we should retain the limestone facades of the existing armory. Those are such a prominent feature, and we felt that even moving forward, regardless of which option we moved with, that they were worth preserving. Some of our green initiatives included tying into the city's plan for trails and making an actual access point on that site. One of the other options for green is incorporating possibly a green roof or a green wall. And one item that we did think might be possible based on the amount of space that you actually have at the site is to introduce geothermal heating, regardless of which option we move forward with. So we have the full team on hand who will be able to tell us the soil, the site, any conditions that may contribute or preclude us from moving forward with that. And then lastly, one idea would be to repurpose the garages. It's just a thought. It's not, nothing's pinned yet, but the idea is that we may be able to preserve those garages and possibly use them as artist lofts or studio space. Next slide. So just breaking down the process for reaching stakeholder consensus. We see this as a 4-step process: mobilization, engagement, planning, and transformation. So in mobilization, we're basically taking the information from task one and reutilizing that. And so, I'm sorry. Did you have
Keep
a
going,
question?
please. Keep going,
Oh,
please.
okay, sure. And so just moving quickly through it, engagement, this is where we will distribute surveys and collect survey data to share with the stakeholders. In 3, this is our planning effort, and we will be compiling the information and having a series of meetings where we share the information with stakeholders and glean additional. And then in 4, we see that being the charrette phase. Basically, this is our visioning, and we will be establishing what the priorities are, developing a draft plan, and then reaching consensus on those ideas before we move forward with the transformation plan. Next slide. So just outlining a couple of activities, we see the activities phase taking approximately 3 to 5 weeks. Within activity, so the idea is part of our stakeholder engagement is actually involving the stakeholders physically. So whenever we have the meetings, we will have exhibits and things that there will be physical interaction between them. So in activity 1, we see that as being the survey distribution activity. And that one is really just casting a wide net so that we can get as much information as possible at the beginning. Activity 2 is likes and dislikes, where we present precedent images and we hand all of the participants stickers that are either red or green, and they identify on board specifically the things that they like and the things that they don't, so we can eliminate the stuff that's no one's interested in. We move into activity 3, where we'll hand out Post-it notes, and we'll do a similar exercise but scaled down so that people can really write and engage more of their thoughts in terms of those things that they really like or those things that they don't. And then by the time we get to activity 4, we will establish breakout sessions, because by this time we will have established a certain series of themes. And in those themes, we basically break out the groups and people can assemble based on the themes that they're interested in. And the way that works is everyone breaks out, they have a chance to talk about and discuss those themes, and at the end, we select one person to report back and to the rest of the group so that everyone is informed at the same time. And so once you get through all of these activities, you're very close to gaining consensus by the larger group. You need to establish who those people are. And then finally, one way that we get people really to engage in this process is by not only offering food, but also having a raffle. So there'll be gifts given. It could be gift cards or things like that, which really drums up a lot of folks' interest in coming out to these activities. And that's my last slide.
Well, thank you. That's a very, very comprehensive overview of the proposal. It seems that staff has done a great deal of due diligence in identifying AMAR as a vendor that we might work with. So one thing that comes to my mind, you've got 3 scenarios: a new municipal building, mixed-use space, new fire station, and a contractor proposed recommendation, which I imagine that could be a hybrid, because when I think of mixed use, you've talked a little bit about artist lofts, but housing, affordable housing or senior housing or issues are things that the council is very, very interested in. So are you limited to those 3 possibilities? I mean, the new municipal building, is that tied into mixed use space, or could the 2 actually be separate?
They could be different. there could be other options for the space too, because the site is actually zoned for residential. So if we wanted to incorporate that, I think it just depends on what the majority wants to move forward with and what you're willing to accept. And so that's, that's going to be borne out in this process moving forward.
Very good. Mr. Roberts, then Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for coming out. I'm really, I like your expression of preserving the building because, and preserving old buildings in general, because I think if you want to be green, that's what you have to do. It's not just preserving the facade. It's preserving a good structural building there because it costs a lot of money and resources, natural resources to build new buildings. So thank you for that. The garages, I'm sure our public works are probably salivating over that because we hear all the time about how they need storage space. And that is to me, that's the ultimate storage space because it literally is built like a bomb shelter. If you look at it, I mean, in fact, I'm sure they have one under there somewhere because they stored munitions in there, not big bombs, but, some munitions, and you got to have pretty good space to store munitions. You can't just store it anywhere. So that tells me it's a well-built building to begin with. So that's great. What I'm concerned about is number 3, and it's not, no offense to you, but I think a contractor provided recommendation as to what should be there or not be there is not appropriate. I think that's a conflict of interest that a contractor should not be getting into because there could be conflicts. You got all kinds of guys, people down there looking to do this or that, and maybe a contractor wants to pad yourself or whatever. I think this should be totally, up to the residents and the taxpayers of how they want to see that sites treated. And I know that we have promised our people at the firehouse a new firehouse at that site for a long time. And the other thing I want to say is that we don't necessarily need a new council building, a new municipal building, because we could use that building to provide office space and other uses, like our Greenbelt Care. So to me, that would be a wonderful space because there's not only office space there, but there's recreation space. There used to be a really nice basketball court and stuff inside there because the military had to provide recreation for the people that would come there and use the site. So to me, that cures our problem with the municipal building. We don't need to build a new municipal building there. We have a nice building here and we can have some uses up there. And because I also believe we need to spread around our footprint in the city. I don't think it should all be in one place, personally. That's my opinion. So that's some of my concerns, and number 3 is my most thing that I would like to change in here because I just don't think that the contractor should be telling us, what to do with the site. It's wonderful that you can tell us the building's good, the building's not good, this is how much it'll cost to build, a certain thing, or, if we say, hey, we want to build this, give us a wonderful, how much that cost. That's all good, but this is not appropriate, I don't think. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And may I just respond? So the ideas for whether it's a municipal building, a firehouse, or the other use was what was identified within the RFP itself. That wasn't anything that we came up with.
Well, I understand, and that's why I said it's no offense to you. I'm not
taken.
blaming you for that. This is coming from the council and the staff, and I don't think it's appropriate. So that's where I'm
None
at.
taken,
Ma-
none
Miss-
taken.
Yeah,
Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Summerall.
Thank you,
Mayor-
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I was going to jump into the defense of the consultant because they are providing us what we asked them to provide. The three concepts are, one is a standard practice to want to vet a couple concepts that are viable, and how we hire the consultants to test how viable they are. It's clear from when I joined the team that we are outgrowing our municipal building. And there was a space study that identified a high demand for more municipal office space for a larger council chamber space. So I'm working based on studies that council has commissioned and approved, and we're looking to follow up on those. So part of what informs that initial concept is the history and the work that's gone into identifying and creating more municipal space for our services. There's been a lot of conversation about the fire station. So that's that first concept. The second concept is a standard practice that you get the team of professionals to look at space, look at the structural integrity, look how the space is designed, and they provide you professional feedback on what that space could be used. It also collects feedback from the residents to ensure that whatever is proposed by the professionals is in line with what the expectations of the council and its citizenry is. The third concept is it is primarily a resident-led perspective. So I think it's important to defend the work of the consultants because they are responding to an RFP that we designed based on best practices and our understanding where council wants to head, and what direction council wants to head.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make a motion before we continue with discussion?
I can do that. I move that council accept the proposal of Amar Group LLC to provide a feasibility study for the Greenbelt Armory and authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Amar Group at a cost not to exceed $166,000.
Thank you. So second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion?
Yeah, I had a thing, and I think the variety of things that the different constituents of our group plus the other ones have worked on, I think is very interesting. I saw several fire stations in there. You had a picture of it, but didn't mention it, the College Park City Hall, but also the previous armory experience. So I think since you've been and helped renovate some of these other buildings, it will be interesting to see your ideas about what could fit in there, also with the feedback of the residents about what people are interested in, what can actually fit in there. And I think the answer to this is based on what you were saying is correct. Is the scope includes you mentioned the garages, but does the scope? I think it also includes that other separate building. Does it include the recruitment office?
The studies for the site, and yes, it includes
Yeah.
that site. However,
Entire site.
we the entire site. We've looked further into that recruitment office. It's in really bad shape. We
Okay.
don't think we can.
I mean,
stop
it didn't look good when we went in there last week. I reckon. So it may just be the space, not if the building's.
Right, the physical space.
Yeah, that one doesn't have even the same nice limestone facades. That looks like that was one of those temporary buildings that it never ends up being temporary. So that was one thing, and I appreciated also one of the things I wanted to bring up was the consideration of creating a green facility. So I appreciate the mention of geothermal. I think the other thing I wanted to point out is if it's possible to, as we're looking at things, what can be salvaged, if not for the city's use, but for other people to use. Because I know, for example, there's that gym floor that has a bunch of water damage, but some of the wood is very usable. Or there's there's an old pool table in there that was in their rec room in there. I don't know, but I just hope that's something we can keep in mind as you're doing your condition assessment, what can be reused. I think there was some mention of some of the doors and things specifically in the report. And then one small comment and one additional question. I mentioned the optional tests for the masonry facade cleaning and material studies I think that was on page 27 and 28 of the document. Are those an extra cost or are those included? Are those tests of that?
The tests are included within the current fees.
Okay. And then the other small comment, you mentioned the public engagement piece and mentioned using red and green stickers for good and bad. I think just to address the idea of people who are colorblind. I hope you can make sure that you have some symbolism or different shapes of those colors, so it's not just red and green, because that's not going to be accessible for some people to be able to participate in that activity. So just small comment.
Thank you for that. And yes, I'll take that into consideration.
Stars and circles, or triangles and circles, or something.
Okay, great. Thank you.
For future use as well.
Okay, are there any other comments and comments from the public? Let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Looking forward to your recommendations and really to find out exactly what the state of the building is, what can be saved and what's really not so feasible. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We really do appreciate it, and we look forward to working with all of you soon.
Thank you so much. Okay, that does take us to what was item number 17, but now is item number 14, and that is a discussion of the budget request from the Reparations Commission. So the Greenbelt Reparations Commission has requested funding in the amount of $165,000 to begin Phase 2. This phase will involve hiring professional expertise to help with specific needs, such as organizing their research to gather relevant genealogical data. This includes data related to past and current housing, education, and health disparities and employment opportunities. So included in the packet is the request itself. So we have several representatives of the Reparations Commission. I'd like to invite you up to the microphone to describe and to just share your request.
Yes, good evening. I'm
Good
Lois Rosado.
Tom Adams, 33 Ridge.
Bob Rand, 19 Ridge Road.
And I am still Conrad Hurley.
Well, welcome. So you've submitted a budget case, it's a request, and I believe we have it. We can pull it up here. But would you sort of describe the request for us, please?
Sure. I'm not awake right now. This is my bedtime, folks. We requested $165 based on Maryland.
165?
Yeah, I'm sleeping. I'm walking in my sleep here. Based on the Maryland salaries and in the areas that pertain to the expertise that we need. Okay, I think we broke out 120 that was research, and we're talking two historians, one African American and one indigenous, to really look at the data and 500-page document that we've collected, that we've researched, because we're not sure where the gaps are, nor are we sure that it represents the perspective of African American and indigenous people. So that was one part of it. The other part was a genealogical, which was 40,000. I think the historians were 50,000 and the genealogical person was 40,000. And that person, we have a couple of people, we have areas that pertain to both the enslaved cemeteries as well as people that worked here that we would like to find. And we don't necessarily need this person. What we need from this person is to actually set up the study process so some of us can engage in it and then help us engage in that process. You want to come forward and share some? The next was the, you want to scroll up? Legal assistance, but we may not need that since you all are developing a task force. So that process was, I guess, is going to be ongoing for the city. And we will not need to deal with that, I would say.
Well, it seems like there might be an interesting opportunity to collaborate here. I think our hope was to find some legal experts who could look at the code and charter specifically with a JEDI lens. So I'm not sure what the city's plan was in this area. Again, I have a lot of confidence in Tyra, but I think she could use some support in this kind of analysis and research.
And then the last piece, the last request was administrative assistant and web page content manager. Some of that we already were funded for in our budget. We haven't been able to hire that person yet, so I'm hoping we can hire the administrative assistant and web page content manager with the allocation that we received in the budget that we were allotted. So that's where we're at. We have done, as I said, a lot of research, and our next, the community outreach. The community outreach had more to do with similar programs that we produced last Saturday, because we really need to get documentation and information out to people. And there is going to be some printing cost. If the city is going to assume that, that'll be great. We won't have to worry about that. But if not, we have to assume, because some of our postcards, we did have to assume the printing cost for those, and it was $750. So that's where we're at, and that's, I think, what we're trying, where we need to go.
Well, thank you very much. First, I really want to thank you, members of the Reparations Commission, for the work that you are doing and continue to do. It's quite an undertaking. It's a very, very large group to work with, and I like the way that you have the phased approach that you are using as we move forward. Mr. Roberts, you had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, as far as the experts that you're going to hire, I guess it's the 40 and the 60,000 dollars. Is there a minimum amount of work that they'll have to do to get that amount of pay?
Short time span to do it.
Huh?
And they'll have a short time span to do it, because we're trying to.
Well, how are you defining that, as far as what can we expect for that for the price that we're paying them?
What we can expect is two things, I think. One is providing us with genealogical structures, and also enabling us to gain access to certain kinds of genealogical tools. LexisNexis is one of them, and we can't access that on our own, but genealogists can. The other thing is we're trying to find individuals that worked in the resettlement for the resettlement administration. We've identified one person, and we have a lead on another, and we're trying to we want to track down descendants of those individuals. We have the one that we definitely have lived in Lakeland, and does have a relative in Lakeland still.
Are you talking about people that actually worked at the project?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And we can thank the Restorative Justice Commission of Lakeland in helping us identify that person. They're also looking into other people from Lakeland who also may have worked here on the project. As I said, we've only been able to identify one so far, and their relative. But we think we have a lead on others than we want to follow up with. The other thing that this person would have to do is actually show us how to expand our outreach for indigenous individuals. And that's also a genealogical practice that is done, but we're not sure, we don't know how to do that. So there were several things that this person would be able to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to add that The sad thing is that Lakeland itself was destroyed.
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
by the city of College Park.
Yes, oh, yes,
And
and
it's-
that's why the city.
I've been around long enough. I remember exactly what Lakeland looked like, and I had friends that I went to school with that lived there, and it's sad what they did. So
They have
but,
a film that's going to be at the Utopia Film Festival, and Saturday, Maxine Gross, who also grew up in Lakeland, she was able to present at our forum.
Anyway, thank you for your answers. Appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, and I think clearly those first two items are pretty specialized, the doing the historical research and the genealogical research. But maybe, Mr. Samaron, you can talk about, because I feel like some of the webpage content manager, some of the stuff about the printing and things, some of the outreach things, it seems like that is something that we don't need a whole new website. We've got a website. We've got website people with the city. Can you talk a little bit about where there might be some?
They've developed a website for us.
Yeah, no, that's what I want Mr. Samaron to talk about. Are there ways that we can use some existing resources that we already have with the city to address some of those needs, aside from the ones that are clearly very specialized? We don't have a genealogy expert on the city staff, I do not believe. We have, Ms. Searing Young may have some expertise, but I don't think we have a genealogist on the city staff that I know of.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We took liberties to recommend those specific items that required very specific expertise that falls outside of our realm of skill sets. So those are I'm jumping a bit ahead of us, but in the upper recommended list, we have included those recommendations for the reparations research and readers and the reparations genealogy, because those are particular skills that we don't have. On the website, we've put up a website. We've got it up and running. We have skills in our organization to be able to do that work. Likewise, for the legal assistance and guidance, we've addressed that a little bit now that we have legal team. I think the council is very aware that we have no shortage of access to legal experts on all kinds of matters. So, thank you. So we can reach out to our solicitor, the team, and other experts in that space. Where I did not jump in or wade in on are particularly the administrative assistant. That falls outside of my office. It's a policy question for council of providing administrative support for the advisory boards and committees, and I think I've raised that with several of you previously, that it's something that it's outside of my purview, so that would be a council policy decision. Right now, the way that we provide administrative support to the advisory boards and committees is through the staff liaison, and it's very limited. I think that there's significant value and a need that the reparations commissions have raised about this administrative assistance, and I think it's a valid point. However, it falls outside of my purview to make to weigh in and provide that assistance until council reviews the policy aspect for that.
But it sounds like that's something, Dr. Rosado, that you were looking at doing as part of the potentially part of the contracting, as part of the allocation and the budget. And it seemed
that person as permanent in the city. Yeah.
But so that might be something that if we need more assistance after the end of the fiscal year, that may be something we need to think about for next year's budget and include as part of next year's city budget, rather than trying to use ARPA money for that, because by that point we wouldn't be able to allocate that.
Yeah.
And I guess thinking of that as more of a contract person, not bringing on an employee, so to speak, but just contracting someone for particular support hours.
Yeah.
Councilmember, Mr. Adams, did you have something?
Tom Adams. Very much appreciate your support and for our work. Dr. Rosado has done an incredible job of bringing this together. We were floundering for a period of time without leadership. She stepped up as our chair, and we're moving now. There's an extraordinary amount of work involved. And as I said the last week when I was here, we have two jobs. It's to tell the story accurately and respectfully of what really happened in Greenbelt. We live in an illusion of what we think Greenbelt is. We all have our picture of what Greenbelt is, this progressive, wonderful community. And it is that. And it's a lot of other things too. And this Reparations Commission is an opportunity to tell the whole story in a way that we all get behind and be united around. We're not trying to assess blame. We're trying to tell the truth about what happened and make amends. And we're trying to institute change. And in order to do that, we have to be thorough, and we have to be thoughtful, and we have to do good work. And this is not an advisory commission that meets once a month and that listens to things. This is a group of people that are working day in. We have a 500-page report that a volunteer with some other volunteers has generated. And so we need your support for this administrative support and for the community outreach, because if we do all this work and we haven't engaged the community, then you won't have the support to take any actions for this reparations, any recommendations that come forward. And I think that would have a negative impact and do harm worse than not having a reparations commission. So I just appreciate the support you're giving us and encourage you to reach a little deeper and help us a little more. Thank you.
Councilmember Nisor, I thought I did.
Yes, I'm just trying to clarify for reparations research reader on our kind of one sheet, it says 35,000 versus the 50 that's represented in the request. I was just wondering which number I'm considering in the reallocation projects. And then, so that's a question for city management. Question for you, Dr. Rosado, is we have to make some really, really hard decisions about money right now. I want to give you all the money, of course. What has been included in kind of suggestions is the reparations research reader at 35 and the reparations genealogy at 40, because it sounds like almost all of the rest we can do or assist you with in-house. Can you tell me the point of including that genealogy research now versus later, please?
Well, if we don't start it now, we're already behind on that work, because that's one of our gaps. So if we don't start it now, that we want to finish this work. So we want to start that now, bring that person in, and hopefully that person will be done within the next 6 to 8 months. So that's what we're trying to do with the genealogical person, and who I met several in Greenbelt recently, which was very nice. And then there's another one who presented before. So we would have to find out what they could provide us in terms of hours and work in terms of what we want to do.
So are we looking for people to interview or families to get,
No,
working
not
knowledge
intern.
from? Or are we looking for families to deliver reparations to?
No, we're not looking for families to, there is a misnomer about reparations. Everybody hears reparations and everybody says money. Reparations is not just money. So it's not a question of looking for families to give reparations to. On the local level, you have two possibilities. One is community benefit, which means looking at whether or not there is equity within the distribution of resources in the city. That's one. The other one is remuneration. But remuneration, it has to really be proven that somebody was not paid, or the pay was lost, or something really drastic, because I don't necessarily see us going in that direction.
So then can you tell me the importance of the genealogical study?
The genealogical study is to identify whether or not an individual that worked here was paid accordingly. Yes, in that sense. But we also know that there were certain, rules and regs at the time. So all of that has to be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Oh, yes, sorry.
There's a question. Tim George has reminded me that there, in the calculation as we were doing the math of available lost revenue funding, that we identify 15,000 being available from the existing reparations budget that could be allocated for this.
Oh, okay.
But we did not have that conversation with Dr. Rosado and the team, whether they could accommodate those 15,000 to make up for the difference of the work. So there's still a question mark whether that would be available.
We don't know we have to see what our final number is. I'm not
So
aware of
there's
that
some variability there and information we don't know. Mhm.
So I'm going to circle around to all council members before we go back to previous council member. So back in May, we did allocate, was it $60,000 towards?
No, it's 30,000, 30 last year, 30 this year.
Uh-huh.
So
And you're
it's a
saying
total of
there's 15
60,000.
available?
Only 15 available from this year's funding.
Councilmember McKinney?
So in the researcher budget that you've outlined in the both the researcher and the genealogy research, it says here annual cost is 50,000 and then salaries for 37 to 40. Do you anticipate that just be one single year, or would that fall over multiple years?
We gave what the annual salary is because that's what Chris Haley from the Maryland Archives suggested. We are hoping not to really have to use all of that.
Okay. Okay. So it was basically a rate. The
rate
the
that
rate
he told us, yeah.
Okay.
For both he gave us the rates for the history readers and researchers, and then which was 50,000 for one person. We divided that into two because we felt that we had sections of our document that could be broken out and given to different individuals.
Just one follow-up then. So do you see that their work would take place in 1 year, or do you, I mean, you may not know, right?
I don't, because we have to see what they tell us when they see that document. And,
Okay.
And they really have to look, because we're not sure. We have identified some gaps in the documents that we have, but we're not sure of others. And that's been the main problem for us.
Ms. Pope?
Yeah, the timeline, so that was my question as well. What's your timeline on it? But
We're
I can
hoping-
understand,
we're hoping-
that it's not very precise, you know, you
Yeah,
can't
no.
really answer that question, right? So I'm looking also at the research, reader, and the genealogy. So, which, you know, I think you have a really big task on your hands, and I understand you need all the help you can get, and I'm willing to give you help wherever we can. I'm not sure if it's going to be the whole amount, but I think the most necessary things that you need, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the breakout, and I didn't disagree with the breakout at all.
Because I mean,
didn't.
it
because
kind
those are specialized areas that
right,
we just.
of course, and it's a huge amount, right?
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, be assured now that we have that commission, we also, which we didn't give you much marching orders, right? There was not much.
No,
we
I
didn't
love,
give you a plan.
I love the way this task force is being developed, because that's what we would have
Right.
really appreciated.
Yeah,
that
because
kind of
everybody
breakout.
asked, you know, everyone we interviewed, and they said, well, what, do you have any documents for us? What do you expect of us? And we're like, no, you just go ahead and do. And I think that was maybe not the way to go. But anyways, so I think we have you, and I know you have a big task ahead of you, and I think, of course, we need to support you in all the ways we can. So
Thank you. Yeah, we have a great group of people. You did
I'm
appoint
sure.
a great group of people,
Yeah.
so we appreciate that.
thank you.
So I'm just wondering, just in terms of, you know, the request is coming, it's out of our budget cycle. This is a phased project. So you came to us in May or June, and now, you know, with the ARPA funding, the city manager has identified some funding that we can put to use. But I'm just wondering, you mentioned working with the Maryland Archives or other resources that we have in the state of Maryland.
We've already been working with them, but
I would think so, yeah.
they're limited in terms of what they can give to us, and that they made that very clear also, because we had initial meetings with them, and we were asking what kind of support.
You know, are there grant opportunities or partnership opportunities?
They're limited. They made that clear. They're limited. They have their staff is shortages in their staff, so
Right.
they're limited in terms of what they could provide and support us with.
Because when you talk about storytelling, that sort of evokes the arts and humanities, and I mean there are different resources that may be available in the state or nationally that might.
Well,
help.
Elaine Bachman, who's in charge of the Maryland Archives,
Right.
she told us to call her anytime
Call her anytime.
with any questions or issues. to follow up.
Councilmember?
First, I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you're doing. This is just such an enormous task, and the fact that this is where you guys were able to end up with this, this plan for your phase 2 work is so impressive. I think you guys have just done an enormous amount of work for a volunteer committee. It's amazing. And I really appreciated the forum this weekend. It was just so well done, and it really helped me personally think about reparations in different ways. And I got so much from that. So, and I'm sure others did as well. So thank you. There's just so much value to what you're doing. So my question is maybe for the city manager. We had talked about, we've been talking about possibly, things like the legal assistance, administrative assistance, or maybe not administrative assistance, but the community education outreach, website maintenance. Some of that could come from the city. Like, does our budget have space for that, though, is my question, because obviously we have budgets for these things as well. So do we have that kind of wiggle room that we could support them?
Some. We had conversations prior to the end of the last fiscal year, and we wanted to use up some of that money we had available. So we were able to procure